Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Canna Bear, Gary Hughes, Measured Flat, Chris Wouters, Mr. Amish, Sensual Goat, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, Todd Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, J Mel's 24, Yuya Namento, M. Iron 26, Endless, Golden McKinnon, Retro Bill, Level Playing Poem, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B. Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Chow Young Cat, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Same as every day.
Well, go on. I've been a bit MIA these days. Fill me in on what's going on. What's the same for Neil?
Well, the atmosphere is very bad around here, so, what can you do?
I'm glad you said atmosphere instead of ambience. Very good, Neil. What's wrong with the atmosphere, Neil?
Atmospheric conditions,
So what do you think is up with the atmosphere around here? What's been going on through your mind?
I just think it's stupid to use the word once you come to an understanding of what it really means.
You know,
Keep them to the side and say exactly what it is, yeah.
Oh, I just noticed something. Yesterday, I decided to check out that Joe Rogan clip you guys are watching. And as I was watching, that guy was complaining that the FE people say there's no atmosphere. And I'm like, give me a break. Who says there's no atmosphere? And then I just paused for a second. I'm like, wait a second. FE people are taught not to say atmosphere. I'm like, oh my goodness. Anyways, I just had an epiphany moment. And I'm like, oh, wow. So do you think he has a
John
point saying there's no atmosphere makes us look stupid?
No, John explained it, right? No, Nathan's doing something. He explained that there's something with the gases, that there's this belief that if you can't see any, it don't exist. So therefore, you can't see gases, they don't exist. So in essence, that's what they're saying. But we don't say there's no atmosphere. We just say it's an oxymoron. Atmo means air. Sphere means sphere. And air does not take the shape of a sphere.
Okay. Well, what else is on your mind, Neil? Is this the only thing that's been bothering you?
No, it's nothing's bothering me really. It's just the way they have the system set up. It's a struggle, man. Everything's a struggle. I start my day 5 o'clock in the morning. I go out to start trying to make money, and no matter what I do, it's never enough. The prices on everything in America are so high.
Okay.
Talk about flat Earth stuff, where we're going. Like I think I with this guy yesterday coming off mute, Danny Faulkner, and the guy Steve Bauman. Although Steve's like a nobody as far as like Danny's a PhD, he writes books, so he's pretty popular. But the guy Steve's been around for a while, so he's compelled to come off mute. And all of a sudden, Danny Faulkner's compelled to come off mute. I just have that feeling that you're going to start seeing people join the show and speaking because they have to. They have to say something. But the tricky thing is, they got nothing to say.
Okay. And
Like I'm talking Neil deGrasse Tyson.
all right.
Mhm.
But
Are
Danny
you
Faulkner is
saying
not
it's
Neil
not
deGrasse
valid?
Tyson. At least he's following. He's monitoring what's going on, or I shouldn't say monitoring. I don't know if he is or not, or whatever. But he's at
No,
least.
he is.
I've seen him.
You hit it
Well,
on the
all right,
head,
but I just want
righteous. He is.
You have to stop cutting
All right,
people
but
off, Neil.
I just want to word it a little bit different. I've seen him in the scene, right? Seen him on this Discord. I've seen him on other Discords. So at least he's participating, let's say. Well, somebody like deGrasse Tyson is not participating. And you've
No, but
seen.
listen, it gets worse. All right, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say quickly, and even Refractor said, yeah, he's been paying attention. So, in other words, he's not talking just like anybody else, like he never heard of stock before. He heard of stock before, so he's kind of trying to meet us at our level, right? When he said, yeah, science doesn't prove the shape of the earth. So we don't got to go through that rigmarole with him, right?
When did he say
Well,
that?
as with some.
Yeah, he
What's that?
answered. He answered that question correctly, didn't he?
That's what I thought Refractor
Yes.
Curvature said about him.
Yes, he did. I'm pretty sure he did, because that was where I first tried to take him. But yeah,
Yeah, so he's not totally in an echo chamber. He's listening. He's
Danny, you gotta watch Danny because he's a slick one. He'll lay on the outskirts for a while. Look at what just happened out of nowhere. Today he decides to speak. Why? Why
well,
today? Oh, yesterday rather. Why yesterday did he decide to speak?
well, maybe he knew you were grocery shopping.
Who cares? Why
well, hold
are you
on.
trying to divine
Neil's
his
got a crystal
Uh,
motivation?
ball.
Sorry, John. Go ahead.
That's what I was gonna say really quick. We don't have to talk about Danny the character, how he is, what his motives are, or anything. Let's just focus on the arguments, like Nathan said.
We are. Who said anything about
I
anything
want
else?
Neil. I want Neil to look into his crystal ball and tell us why Danny was decided to speak. Obviously, Neil knows.
No, it's because the way flat earth debate is going, just the rock solid facts that come from this show, it's compelling them to have to say something. But
Isn't
they
this appeal
can't.
to motive?
How are you going to say anything? What can you say to overcome this? Nothing, right?
We discussed this in an off-air after show. I was hanging around because I was testing the computer. So when Danny joined, I was testing the computer. It was in the after show, and unfortunately for me, I'm amongst the quite a few people who've got a chip that's degrading with time. So out of the blue, it crashed when it's been perfectly stable for a fair few months, which is annoying, but I can just tweak it and make it work again. But I was in that process when he joined. So I'm like, okay, let's turn this game off so that it doesn't necessarily induce a crash when we've got Danny on the ropes. So I stopped that process, and then after obviously he'd gone, everyone still wanted to talk about it. It was useful because everyone was hanging around, could repeat the process like 10 times testing the computer last night, which is good because I'm mildly confident that it's all back to how it was until it degrades again in 6 months. But there we go, such is life.
I would like to point out something, and Neil's going to love me for this. But if what we're doing is not having a grander effect on not only the community we speak to daily, but on the flat Earth believing community, the anti-flat Earth community, and the Globers, why did Mr. Faulkner say that it's not a scientific inquiry?
Because he's paying attention. He knows what's said here.
I think the point John's making is while you appeal at this stage his motivation for joining. Our appeal over the last, let's say, 6 months has been to our own side to say, look how wonderful this argument is. Let's use it. Even before this conversation started, I'm queuing up a Dave Weiss video. In the last couple of days, we've also covered him and appealed to his use of these arguments, right? That's where our current appeal lies. But it means you don't necessarily step back and consider the opposing side, who are also paying close attention. We're just not necessarily appealing to them directly when we currently do what we do. We still deal with them reactively, but our general focus is towards our own, because they're opposing us. And we're questioning, why would our own side oppose us when the opposing side agree with us? Now, we're just throwing that in like it's nothing, because our focus is on, why aren't our own side picking this, like with Black Swan, right? Why aren't they picking this up and running with it? It's amazing. They should be getting to grips with it, understanding it, and then putting it into effect. Why aren't they? The whole time we're doing that, our opponents are like, it's like nails on a chalkboard to them, and we're not even giving it any consideration until now when you appeal to his motive to join. What have we been talking about for the last 6 months?
Or it is measured flat.
So now, with an empathic mindset, you can inquire to motivation for someone like Danny Faulkner on the opposing side, can't you?
Yes.
Well, that's not exactly what that's a very good point, and it is related to what I said. But 10 years ago, if you asked Danny if the shape of Earth was a valid scientific inquiry, would he have been able to escape that?
Yeah,
No.
easily. Yeah, he would have done. Yeah, easily. 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah. 10 years ago, he would have said the things that we've been hearing for the last, 10 years. Up until the Black Swan.
He may not have boldly declared that the whole body of science proves it, but he'd have inferred it in some meaningful way that would be easy to decipher.
He didn't say that yesterday, though.
No, he did not.
He said it's not a valid. So how isn't that a different answer than what we have received for 10 years?
That's what I said. He's paying attention. We're shaping. We're leading the way. It's sad that Flat Earthers are not following. It takes Danny Faulkner to pay attention and understand that it falls outside of the scientific method. That's the sad part.
It goes beyond paying attention.
Well, you know
though.
what?
He has been, past tense, influenced.
That's the word.
And as far as the scientific method goes, anybody here is going to flat out state that they have the knowledge, or they either have the knowledge or they have remembered knowledge that they had already been taught but had forgotten because of quantum eraser and no one else. And we owe that man a lot as far as our appreciation of our understanding of the world we live in.
Yeah, that's why it wasn't the same when he wasn't here for a couple of weeks, almost a month. Just didn't feel right not hearing from QE at least once a week.
On a different note, I've got some relatively good news today. So we have a test that we have to put our cars through here called an MOT. And we have a particularly old car. And it sailed through with like a couple of bulbs needing changing and nothing else. So it was like £90, which included the price of the test and a couple of bulbs, and that was it. So with that particular car, when it got to the 7-8 year mark in age, just everything seemed to fail. Every month we'd be taking it to a garage and spending £1,000 on it. And then it got to a point where it seemed that all the crap components that were put in by the manufacturer to ensure it failed out of warranty had all been replaced. And it now just seems to tick along quite nicely. It's done like 140,000 miles. And it just sailed through its MOT, which is uncharacteristic for something like almost 25 years old. So we're particularly
You have the
delighted.
car of Theseus, then.
Say again?
You have the car of Theseus?
No, we just, where a lot of people would get to a point, like I say, at about the 7 or 8 year mark, where they're like, I'm no longer going to spend $1,000 every single month I go into this garage because there's something else gone wrong. Most people would get rid of the car at that point, whereas we didn't. We kept it and kept maintaining it. Like I say, and weeding out all the crappy faults that manufacturers put into their cars that most people will just let slide until it fundamentally destroys the car, and then it gets scrapped. Well, each and every little thing that has gone wrong on this car throughout its life has been addressed almost immediately. Not recently.
Right, but the car you bought
Not
now.
anymore. Now we're poor, so to have it sail through an MOT is fantastic news. Anyway, enough about this.
I was just saying that the car that you have now is not the same car you bought because there are so many pieces that are not that car.
Yeah,
Right?
but it
The
is
ship of Theseus.
fundamentally the same car. It's the same motor. It's the same car. I know what you're saying. It's had a lot of replacement bits on it, but they're little bits. They're sensors,
Triggers
they're
broom.
brake lines, they're things like that.
Triggers broom, Nathan.
I know what he's saying. Yeah, Trigger's broom. We have a character called Trigger in a series called Only Fools and Horses, and he was a road sweeper, and he explains that he's had the same broom for 20 years, and it's had 14 replacement handles and 12 replacement heads.
I'm happy for you about your car, though. That's definitely a weight off your shoulders and one less bill to pay. So
Because it's used. It's because it actually because it's our daily driver, as inappropriate and impractical as it is as a car. We do actually use it daily, which for whatever reason it seems that when you do use cars, they tend to be less prone to breaking. So when we stuck it in the garage and had a replacement when we had little babies that we couldn't physically fit in it, it sat, and then when we did have that same test, it failed on all sorts of different things because it was sat not being used. And then you use it for a full year and it sails through. You're like, that's weird. But no, it isn't. It's just because it's being used. All the stuff that needs to stay lubricated is being lubricated. Nothing's sat and, seizing.
It's interesting how you got to get that right amount of usage as opposed to maintenance, as opposed to time unused.
Yeah,
it's like the efficiency arcs we were talking about with your computer. You know what I mean?
It's an entropic arc, isn't it? Because without use, the entropic arc increases quite drastically, and with too much use, the same thing applies. So there's a balance between not using it and using it that keeps it nice, which is like, okay. I remember seeing it on one of the car YouTuber videos, and they're like, if you've got some nice sports car, use it or sell it. Because if you just stick it in a garage, the amount of times people go to buy one of these old barn find or garage kept princess cars that people have loved, they're like, well, it worked perfectly when I parked it. And you're like, that doesn't mean anything now, 5 years later. It could be a complete wreck now. Well, it's not gone anywhere. How could it be a wreck? And you're like, well, with more ways than one.
Yeah, my uncle gets classic cars and fixes them up. He will not buy a garage kept classic car. He said if it was up to him, he'd rather go to a junkyard. If he's going to, and I was like, why would you do that? Why not get one that you have to put less work in? He's like, less work. He said, I'm going to have to replace every piece on it anyway. I might as well get it for about $20,000 cheaper.
Yeah, the fact that it looks nice while it's sat there doesn't mean that every single pipe isn't corroded. But yeah, very pleased. It was a garage princess. We used to take it out every once a month or maybe a little bit more frequently and just drive it around the block and then put it back in the garage. Now, over time, just that little journey, quarter of a mile, let's say, when we would reverse it out, it would make a little squeak, which you kind of semi-notice when it first starts, but then you kind of ignore, and then you don't notice it at all. And then when we put it back on the road, we took it to get the tracking done, alignment, I think you call it. And the guy was like, "Has it been in a crash?" I'm like, "No, it's just been in the garage." He's like, "You sure it hasn't smashed into a curb?" I was like, "No, definitely not." So he fixed it and got it all tracked up nicely. But you think, seriously, just reversing it out when it's obviously been sat for a fortnight, let's say, and the brakes have binded a little bit, and then you try and reverse it out and it just kinks the suspension a little bit each time to the point where someone thinks it's been in a crash. It's nuts.
Hey, check this out. Check this out, right? Like if you're working on any kind of generation station of electricity that works with massive turbines, they have this thing called turning gears. And that's when you shut the generator off, you constantly have to turn that rotor, because if you don't, the weight of the rotor itself will cause itself to warp, and it's harder. It sounds crazy. I'm not making it up. Just ask anybody that's ever worked on one or look into it yourself. Yeah, the weight of that shaft will bend itself just from not using it.
At the other end of the extreme, where stuff is tiny by comparison, you've got F1, where the motor is seized when they physically unpack the thing and take all the covers off it, and it's in the back of the van. The engine's seized, and they have to pump hot fluid around the motor so that they can start it. That's how tight the tolerances are.
Yeah, they have to get the metal to heat up and expand to allow the motion to take place, because it's at that point compressed. That's actually how they fit in a lot of people. Like when you look at inside of superstructures and you see pieces put together and it don't look like there's any bolts or anything, like a ring put in another ring, and you're like, how do they get that to stay there? Is they if they're putting it inside, they super cool it so it shrinks and then put it in, and then when it warms up, it'll expand to tighten. And if it's going on the outside, they heat it up so they can slide it over, and then when it cools down, it does the same thing in the other. It pulls together.
Right. They're the reverse
It's
problem with
interesting.
aircraft, don't they? When they're on the ground, they're like all leaking and stuff, because obviously they've got to account for it expanding when it gets up high. So they have the contrasting problem. They get it on the ground, it's dripping everything out of itself. And then you get it up and it all tightens up and it's all, super slick and super tight.
Yes, and what you're talking about, the weeping problem of high altitude jets, that's actually when we were talking about Gus Grissom, and I was saying, that's actually a common problem. You can look at just the fuel problems they have and see how it would be easy to mess that up. I mean, just look at them sitting on the runway. They look like they're, you know, they're a Ford or something, the amount of fluids dripping out of them.
Right. And it's because there's so many other systems that are ancillary to the basic systems. So, for instance, like you say, the fuel. And we're working on the premise that there's engineers that believe they're going to be sending it to these, areas that are extremely hostile. Well, the fuel would just glog up and basically turn into mush, like mashed potato, and it wouldn't pump anymore. So they have to keep the fuel lines heated. So there's all these ancillary systems that run alongside the main systems just to keep them functional in really extreme circumstances. Right. So you look at it and you go, well, why would it be that complicated? It's just a really basic jet engine, not even jet engine. It's like solid fuel, isn't it? It's like as basic as it gets. It's basically a glorified firework. Why is all this crap around it? You're like, well, that's why, because there's so much ancillary stuff that's needed to make the stuff work in a place that it's supposed to be going but doesn't really exist. It boggles the mind, really, when you think about it in these contexts, knowing what we know. It does boggle your mind a little bit, surely.
Well, yeah, just because it's not going to this place, because this place doesn't exist doesn't mean you can't design it to specs that would align to what they say it is. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I believe the engineers were trying their best to do. And I think they had a lot of pride in what they accomplished, or think they accomplished anyway, you know?
But if we juxtapose that 25, 30, 40 years ago with time travel, right? That is to say that we suggested that there was a complete farce, a charade of someone right outside my window cleaning windows. Can you hear the ladder? My apologies. There's a complete farce going on where people are designing machines to spec to work in the fourth dimension so they can travel through wormholes and achieve time travel, you know, loop back on themselves. And if we were to point that out to the general public, then this is going back some time. They've all been brainwashed by now, right, in current times, to probably accept it today, this narrative I'm giving. I just can't think of anything else that you would, you know, put out there in the way of, like, Back to the Future. You know, if somebody in the 80s was saying, no, we are really building a DeLorean and we've got the best engineers working on it, you know, I don't think many people would swallow it. But because of a couple of 100 years of brainwashing and heliocentrism, people accept that people are going up to a sky vacuum, you know, without even giving it much thought, to the point where they'll get the best engineers working on it. And they're not giving a second thought to whether or not it might actually be going to the place they're supposed to be sending it. You know, it's accepted. Like I say, it boggles the mind.
Well, the thing is, if you look at it in an extremely narrow view and ignore certain important factors, right? You could almost understand why they believe that. Like, well, you know what? Gas pressure does gradiate as you rise in altitude. That does happen. Well, let's start calculating it to as far as we can go. But see, that's the thing. You start calculating as far as you can go, you have an infinite, with calculations, you can go down as far as you want with pressure, just in calculation. You know what I mean?
No, I don't deny that.
Why are you always apologizing for them?
Well, no, we're not apologising. We're accounting in our own special way of plausible deniability on their behalf for our own sanity. When I say it boggles the mind, it's because it's very difficult for me to understand why it wouldn't be questioned. Now, that's why I keep rewinding time by 20 years, because then I can put myself in that mindset where I'm like, well, I would have perfectly accepted it back then, but what wouldn't I have accepted? Well, someone coming up with a time machine and pumping it in. Then I can compare that to how I feel now about space. Do you see what I mean? It's difficult to suspend disbelief to have a conversation about it now, or it is for me.
Well, let's not talk about space, though. Let's just talk about extreme pressure differentials, right? We'll have to forget that they're measured from sea level. That's unimportant at the moment. Uh, it's like these are not the droids you're looking for. Let's just talk about this one aspect, right? So, if we can figure out a ratio of gas pressure gradient decrease as we raise an elevation, then we can calculate what that will be for, every amount we raise in elevation, and then there'll be a point where the things that we have now will not be good enough to survive in that area. We can design something to go there, can't we?
I mean, you are just describing what is currently happening, so obviously this isn't going to turn into an argument. This is the current circumstance, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I said, the engineers that designed this stuff.
There you go, Neil.
Yeah, that's what I.
Or don't. I mean, it's up to you.
I said it's NASA. That's what NASA's doing. They're sending ships up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, up there, yeah, with respect to horizontal plane. Let's forget what up there means and just talk about the pressures that we would have to deal with, or the pressure differentials, not what pressure is, how we will define pressure, any of that. We're working only in calculation as it relates to a pressure gradient change in elevation. And forget about what elevation means. Just the gradient. Only focus on that. Hyper focus.
Hmm.
It's hard to do, knowing what we know.
But that's all that they do, is they hyper focus on one aspect without thinking about how that must interact with the rest of the world, or what that measurement actually is. And then they'll go into calculation, which is just purely mathematical at certain points. You know, it may be a valid calculation, but they're taking it to such an extreme that, you know, I think they believe that what they're designing could withstand what they say it will experience.
Now, see, it's that one astronaut that wound up dying anyway that was concerned that he couldn't even get the trial one to work right. So you mean to tell me they didn't know that you can't go to this region? That you cannot go to this region?
No, it doesn't necessarily follow. We did cover this at length yesterday with you, Neil.
How does that not follow?
Okay, you've got a guy who gets a phone call about a really nice Ferrari for sale. The guy gets sent the VIN number, he gets sent the details, he gets told about all its flaws. He then puts it for sale on his website. And then when a customer contacts him and asks him very specifically about one of the things he knows is flawed about this Ferrari, he lies and says, no, the brakes are fine, they've been recently serviced, nothing to worry about in that regard, just buy the car, it's fine. The guy buys the car from the dealer. Yeah? Turns out the car itself is not real. Flaws aren't real, the car isn't real. Both the customer and the dealer have been scammed. Now, it goes to court and the judge says, you were lying to the customer about it having faulty brakes, which makes me think you knew it wasn't real. And the dealer says, yes, I lied about there being perfect brakes. I did not realise the car was not real. By comparison, yes, I lied about going to a place that isn't real by your standards, Neil. No, I lied about going to space. Okay, so you know space isn't real? No, I just thought I personally couldn't get there for the reasons I was given. Doesn't necessarily follow they know it's fake when they have to lie.
No, I'm talking about I'm talking about the higher ups, not the astronauts themselves.
Name 3 of them.
I don't know, whoever's in charge of NASA.
That's not good enough.
Right, whoever's
The
at
hidden
the top.
hand. Ah, the hidden hand. They knew. I see.
Hold on a minute. They knew what, though? What did the hidden
They
hand...
know that you can't travel to a region. They know that you cannot travel to this region. You think they don't know when they're still trying to
Who
get
are they?
Hold on.
Who the hell are they?
Pardon me. Hold on. I would like to point something out.
I just told you.
Said. Neil, you just said that you cannot go to this region that does exist.
Well, we're talking up there again. We're talking to the stars, the sun, the moon. We see it, but they know they can't get there.
They know they can't get to this region that certainly does exist. What are they lying about then?
Point is, you can't.
Because they're still sending people. They're still claiming they're going there.
Yeah, but you can't conclusively conclude that they are lying about the area not being real. If you were to quiz them about why they lied, it would be, from us not being able to do that, obviously, acceptable if they got to a point where they said, no, I still thought space was real. No, I didn't think we were lying about it because it wasn't real. And when they said that, it wouldn't be shock and awe. It would be, oh, so you thought you could go to space, but then at a point you personally couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't go to that area that definitely exists as far as I am concerned. Could be their answer, and that would be acceptable. In other words, it would be unreasonable at this stage for us to extrapolate out that they are lying about their belief in space, just lying about being there, which is all we've ever asserted. When they say they've been in a sky vacuum, automatically they're liars. There is no sky vacuum, so they're liars about that. But when you say, well, they know the Earth's flat, or they know that there is no sky vacuum, that's a step too far, unfortunately. Might seem like, oh, you're being a bit fussy, aren't you? Well, yeah.
And that's one of the interesting things about how lies work is you don't necessarily have to know the truth to lie about something.
Or more easily to get someone else to lie.
Oh yeah,
you can give
the
them
dumber
more
it gets, the easier it is for people to lie about it because they could believe it's true, that it's a possibility, but what they're doing is for another reason. And then, you have this interplay of, I don't even know, I'm missing the word. I'm sorry, it's too early for me. Give me a minute.
Yeah, if you've worked all your life on producing the finest materials to traverse the wardrobe, and then one day you are elevated to the grandiose position of being able to traverse the wardrobe, potentially wearing one of the fur coats you made, and you're all lined up, they've put you into this snow simulator so that you can get the general vibe of what it's going to be like when you do that journey, and you're all trained up, you've got every certificate. You go in front of the news, you tell them about the journey through the wardrobe. You can't wait to tell them about what Narnia is like. You're going to take loads of pictures. You've got your Hasselblad camera. You're all set. And then disaster strikes. What would you know? Something's gone wrong with the flux capacitor in the wardrobe. You can't go. But we're a bit too deep to say you haven't been now, so it would be really cool if you could just say you have even though you haven't. Now, I'm not saying you won't be able to go in the future. Give it another week and we'll really send you. But just for now, just tell the press you did go, and we'll use some of the old photos that we've got. We didn't publish all of them, and we've got some great photos. You've seen them, right? You saw the photos we got last time. They were wicked. We just used some of them. Is that all cool? It's for the greater good. So,
the greater good. I love that. Yeah, see, even better than that is, look, our program is not doing as well as we portrayed. There is an opposing country to us that is miles ahead of us. And if we aren't able to give the perception to the world that we are at least competing with them, if not exceeding their capability, we are going to lose this war. Your
it's a
family will be in danger
massive threat
because
to
of
national
that.
security. You're absolutely right. Lieutenant Colonel Refracted Curvature.
In the mind's eye of the individuals who think that they're lying for a good reason, well, that's not a step too far. It's not.
I don't like this. I don't like this at all.
Look, there is literally, you don't know about the wardrobe that Russia have got out. Were you aware of their wardrobe? Their wardrobe has been working consistently for at least 6 months, Neil. Now, obviously the public aren't going to get to know about the wardrobe in Russia, but our wardrobe, they have been told about, and they are expecting pictures of Aslan. So, I'm not saying you're not going to go next week. I'm not saying you're not going to go next month. You will go. I absolutely assure you. You can trust me on this. You will get to go through the wardrobe. Just not today.
So more than 50 years later, still nothing, and you still think they're buying this crap? You guys are whacked.
What are you talking about? Did you not listen to what Buzz Aldrin said to that little girl? Go back and listen to it now in context of what me and Nathan just put to you.
No, he did take that wrong. He's talking about they didn't go back. I don't know why they didn't go back. Not that they didn't go in the first
He
place.
also
He's
he
always
said we
misused
didn't
that.
go. No. He said we didn't go, and then he realized what he did. But he is questioning why we didn't go back after he realized what
You
he
got to
said,
play that for me.
because it was always promised to him that they would go.
They did go the first time. We got Turkish delights. You saw the snow on the coats when they came back. You saw it all. We've seen
You guys are making excuses. I'm tired of it. You can't tell me that. That's not what he said. It doesn't say he said that. I haven't seen
For
one
what?
where it says because we didn't go.
Not an excuse.
What
We've
am I
got,
excusing?
they have back-engineered those Turkish delights, and you can buy them, Neil. I mean, they're not obviously the ones that came from Narnia, but it's the exact same ingredients. They reverse-engineered them. Did you not know? You can buy them. Are you denying that you can buy those Turkish delights? Because you're just an idiot.
Neil, I'm not making excuses for them. I'm stating that they are liars, but they are liars who don't know the truth, is my only point. And it is more likely than the idea that they do know and that they're in some kind of huge conspiracy.
Yeah, there's no Bond villain. There's no Bond villain that's got you at gunpoint telling you the plot, letting you know the secrets and why you're in the position you're in just before you shoot him. That's not how life works. You keep people in the dark intentionally. You make them do what you need them to do. And I agree with you, John. There's absolutely no way they'd know the truth. It would be so much more dangerous to have them in a position where they know the reason why they're lying. You just have them lie for a motivation that you give them, not because of the truth.
Yeah, but even the people that are pressuring them to lie in that scenario don't necessarily know the truth. All they know is that in this scenario, like I said, I'm having to work on assumptions, just like you are, Neil, but I have just a few less than you do. The thing is they're doing it for what is easily perceivable as the betterment of their country within the stage of a worldwide, theater.
How are you?
Good afternoon.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
I really want to make one of those inside jokes about the pre-show, and then put Nathan in the position where he's got to explain it. But I'm
You
not
feel
going to do
free.
that.
What? That you
I
said
don't mind.
protect? What? That you said protecting liars?
It's enough of a segue for me to have to explain already. So you go ahead, John.
Damn it.
When you're talking about exposing the lie, make sure you get the lie correct that's actually being told.
Okay, so for full context for the audience, we were discussing NASA astronauts specifically in the pre-show, and the contentious aspect of the discussion was Neil's suggestion that astronauts know there is no sky vacuum. That is to say, astronauts know space is fake. John and myself would say otherwise. The lie, you can categorically prove, is that there is no space for them to be in, were they to assert that they have been in one. Now, the suggestion that upon lying about being in an area that doesn't exist automatically implies that you know the area does not exist isn't reasonable. In the same way, if you are a fully trained racing car driver and you are scheduled to go and drive a particular model of Z30 F1 Ferrari, and you are scheduled to go in it, but for whatever reason, fate suggests that you can't, and it gets cancelled and you don't go in the car, and you talk to the press about how excited you were to test out the new ABS, and it turns out there was never a car. Ferrari never built it. It didn't ever exist. But as far as the person suggesting that they're disappointed that they'd be going in it, they didn't know that there wasn't actually a car. Now, in the same exact scenario, if that same F1 driver turned around to the press and told them that they did drive the car and they really enjoyed the new ABS system, obviously that would be a lie. But when it came to a court case about this particular incident, and the F1 driver's quizzed about his lies about experiencing the ABS system, he confesses to having lied about using those brakes in that car. But it didn't mean he knew the car wasn't even real. He knew he was lying about being in a car. He just didn't know that that particular car he was lying about being in didn't even exist. So it's not reasonable to suggest simply by lying about the car and its brakes and the performance, because he's lying about driving it, means he knows there isn't even a car. It doesn't necessarily follow that knowing that there isn't a car would be inferred from him lying about being in it, if that makes sense. I hope it does.
Yes, because
So they
what
continue
is
the lie.
a
Hold on.
Oh,
So they continue it. They go up on the pulpit of a church and say how they were one of the last men to orbit the moon or the earth, whatever.
That's a lie.
So the lie continues.
No, that's a lie.
And they don't know.
Your objection to the guy who went up in Times Square Church, former astronaut, and talked about his experience in orbit around a sphere Earth in a sky vacuum is a lie. And you can, with absolute and total justification, call that for what it is, a lie. However, if you turn around and tell anybody that he knows space is fake, that's not reasonable.
it is a non sequitur. That does not follow.
But since when do we care about motive or whether they know or not if they're lying? If they're lying, we know that they're lying. That's all that
not
matters.
about motive. No, it's not about
I just
motive.
don't understand
It's
why you guys
about
are.
what they know. You can't lie about something that you didn't state, right?
It'd be nice if I could hear Mighty
about
Mush
what
get his
you
whole
know.
stupid out.
No, I'm just gonna say I'm genuinely confused why you guys are like sugarcoating their lies and like coming up with all these analogies. Like what's this all
Me
about?
too.
I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it.
Well, I'll
Because
state
it's
that for you.
important.
It's important.
Because
John has summarised it beautifully once already. It's important to get the lie correct if you're going to call someone a liar.
I can call them a liar without
because
noting
we
their
know the
motives or
astronauts
whether
are
they
lying,
know that
but
they're
we don't
lying
know
or
if
not.
the engineers are lying.
Right, let's let Mush get to the end of at least one sentence. Then, Liam, go ahead, Mush.
If I know something is 100% lie, and that if I know 100% that they're lying about it, why would I even care about their motive or whether they know or what they believe about space or not? I don't even care about it.
Neil?
You know what I mean?
Well,
I'm
yeah,
confused
but
why
Neil
you
doesn't
guys
agree. Then we're going to go to Liam. Neil, who cares about their motivation, says Mush, that you were so desperate to hear. Now you're not responding to him.
Oh no, John was interrupting him. I just wanted to hear the whole thing.
You just wanted to neg John.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, you just wanted to neg John. Go ahead, Liam.
Well, we know the astronauts are lying because they claim to go to a sky vacuum knowing full well they're not going there. But the original conversation was about engineers and whether the parts they're making, whether they know, aren't going to a sky vacuum.
See, you just said like they know they're
Well,
not going there,
there-
and that's what the whole
There's
thing is about. Do we care?
Yes, they
Do they know or
they
not
are
if they're
not
lying?
going to an area. Well, let me just say it because I want you guys to to understand this, or from my perspective on it. They know they've not gone into orbit around a sphere Earth in a sky vacuum. They know that has never happened. They are lying when they say that. However, if they say they believe it's a sphere and they believe in outer space, or that they believe in gravity, that is not a lie. You cannot hold them to task on it.
And we're not.
In
Nobody cares about
2024, we
any of our
can.
beliefs. Yeah.
No, Neil does mush. This is Neil's issue. Neil's like, I can
No,
call
it's
them
not.
liars.
Hold on. It's not Neil's issue. I didn't say the astronauts. I said there's people higher than them, the ones in the authority.
No, this was
You just put it on the astronauts. My issue is the guy in Times
No, I shot that down.
because he outright lied.
No,
But
I
in
shot.
2024, there's no excuse.
No, I shot down the hidden hand garbage, didn't I? Then we continued with the conversation about astronauts. We were specifically talking about astronauts, and the point that's come out of it is, if you're going to call someone for being a liar, call them out for being a liar, you have to be specific about what they're lying about, and it has to be a lie. That is to say, they have malice aforethought, and it's not true. Well, if somebody is telling you that they've been to a place that isn't real, it's perfectly acceptable for me to believe or to accept as a logical, reasonable understanding of how people behave, to accept that people believed they were going to get to go through the wardrobe door into Narnia. And they've trained to go through the wardrobe door into Narnia. And they've trained here with simulations of what Narnia will be like when they get there. And then for whatever unfortunate circumstances befell them as an individual, they didn't get to go through that door. And they did not get to go to Narnia. And then they lie about going. That bit's a lie. Because they didn't go. Now, we know they didn't go because the place isn't real. That's how we can prove they're lying. But they didn't know that was the reason they had to lie. And I'm almost certain that they'd have been given a very, very different reason for why they'd be lying when they're put in a position to have to lie. But that doesn't mean they know the truth. They don't know the motivation behind the overall lie, which is to say there is no wardrobe and there is no Narnia, and that's why you couldn't go. But all your training still happened. It's just it wasn't really beneficial for Narnia travel because there isn't any. Does that mean that the guy who lied about actually going to Narnia, if he knew the truth that there was no Narnia, he wouldn't have been a convincing liar when he lied about going there? He's still got to believe it's a real place and be able to cognitively put himself in that place that he believes is real to describe how it was for him when he lies about going there. If they knew, in fact, I'm going to go with this now, it's far more likely they don't know. Because if they did, they'd be really, really pushed to lie about it, convincingly. Can't give them too much to lie about. Just lie about you not being able to go on this particular occasion, not cover up the entire grand conspiracy of space by lying about going there, please. I just think that's implausible.
Yeah, and it's extremely implausible when you look at some of the greatest minds and inventors that we know of had a heliocentric belief. We cannot hold people accountable as liars for acceptance without evidence.
Yeah, you can't call them liars for holding beliefs. You can hold them accountable for lies that they've, for whatever reason, lied about from within that belief. Whether they know it's a belief or not is irrelevant. Only the bit that you can prove is a lie. In this case, there definitely isn't a Narnia. Let's just flick between that and the actual real discussion. There is no sky vacuum called outer space. So any man who claims to go there is a liar. Not carte blanche, every word comes out his mouth is lies, but the words they state about being in space are lies. Because there is no space to be in, ergo they can't be anything other than liars when they claim to be in Narnia. I mean space. Bit past the 15-minute mark, which is too late to do housekeeping. You know, we're doing this with a dirty room, whether we like it or not. But we do have a couple of different choices after a call to action. So QE, if you're a regular watcher, joined the show a couple of days ago, and tentatively, let's just say, that's a gross under-exaggeration, we found out why he'd been away for a couple of weeks, which is to say he's got financial woes, and he's disappeared to sort them out. And as a YouTuber, a fellow YouTuber, I know that there's an audience that will want QE here rather than solving financial ways through whatever means he's solving them by. That is to say that with a campaign which Adam Meakin has put together, and I and others have already supported, we can put him back on the air as quickly as possible, so that he's not trying to solve a financial woe by whatever means QE does that by, I don't know. So as I say, we've put together a campaign. We did drag out of him precisely how much financial hardship he is in, and it's more than a couple of grand, which is obviously not an insignificant amount of money. That said, we've already reached like $788, so that's pretty fantastic. What I'm going to do is put a link to this GoFundMe, or it's not, I keep saying GoFundMe, that's just like saying Hoover. It's a Give, Send, Go campaign as opposed to a GoFundMe campaign. Yeah, if indeed you can't generously give, financially that is, link by clicking the share button. There's already been 2 people who've clicked that button, and you'd be surprised how effective that is if indeed you can't necessarily financially contribute. So at the very least, normally we're doing a call to action for the videographer that we're covering, but in this case it's let's try that again, a Give, Send, Go campaign that we're promoting with the link going by in the live stream chat right now. So go and do it right now. Click on it, and rather than sharing this show, this will be to my viewership detriment, but for the people who are there now, rather than me doing a call to action to share this show, go and click on the share button if nothing else. Obviously, I'd prefer if you went and gave him $5. If every single person in the audience now, blah 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 blah. But yeah, 70 odd people watching now. Please go and click on the link that's going by in the live stream chat. Give generously to Quantum Eraser's support campaign. If you can't financially support it, please click on the share button. But we will do a few shout outs for all the people who have actually done that so far, while obviously people follow my call to action and click on that link. So hopefully when they come back, we'll just be doing the ends of the shout outs for all of those people, good people that have actually supported it already in the last 12 or 13 hours. So we'll do that now. If I can get to the bottom of this list, let's just do that. It's slightly covered up, so let's just sort that out. So a big shout out to anonymous giver, myself, another anonymous giver, Len Lennox, thank you very much indeed for supporting the campaign. Curic Cosmology, or is it Quranic Cosmology? I have to excuse my terrible reading out of some of these names. It's on a very, very small pixelated 4K display, so the words are tiny to me, in case you're wondering why I can't read English. Another anonymous giver, thank you very much for supporting the campaign. Vlad on 0 Degrees, who's with us now under a different name, Mush, thank you very much indeed for supporting the campaign. Jerry, thank you very much indeed. Jerry Mersil, really appreciate the support. Flat Earth Fisherman, woohoo, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate your support also. LLB Store, I believe is one of my patrons, thank you very much indeed. And yet another anonymous contributor to the campaign. So thank you very much. If indeed you do contribute during this live stream, I'll give you a shout out on this show. So as I say, if you can't afford necessarily to support QE's campaign financially, please click on the share button. It is dead easy, a bit like in YouTube. It'll bring up all your favourite places. If you don't want to put it on one of those and you've got an obscure one, there's a easy copy link button, so you can paste it into an email or whatever else that you'd like to do to share it. But all the common places, Facebook, X and WhatsApp and such like, are there to click on with one extra click after clicking the share button. But preferably you'd just give him $5 or $10 or $100 or whatever you want to give him. Give generously. Hopefully that's given everyone enough time to toddle along to that. I won't do a straw poll on what video we'll cover. We'll just have a little chat about QE's woes while people rejoin the stream, and then we'll get into covering a video. That sound good, lads? And lasses, if there are any? Yes, Nathan, sounds great. Great call to action, by the way. Oh, thanks. I hadn't rehearsed it or anything. Felt smooth.
Did you, when you were talking about QE, I had to step away for a moment. I'm sorry. You did address the fact that as a community, what we owe QE is is priceless in the information that he has shared with us. Did you point that out?
I did, but on balance, while that is true, I do kind of feel he owes me. If I'm ruthless.
Can I just say one thing?
Go ahead, whoever that was.
Yeah, it's me, bro. If I had to match my donation with the amount of respect and admiration I have for QE, it would be in millions of dollars. Like literally.
Amen. Amen. Very well said.
Yes, me
I wish I
downplaying it and
could do that
satirizing
more.
it is done out of respect also as a Brit. But I concur, absolutely. The respect we have for QE is very, very high. And, you know, without really a second thought. In fact, the only pain in the arse in this campaign was QE himself, because he's a proud guy and he doesn't want to accept help. He's got two hands and can do things to earn money out of a difficult situation which he's found himself in. And he didn't want to even tell us about it. But after we found out and then got a dollar value on it, it immediately became a campaign. So it's like, you know, if this dollar amount will get you immediately broadcasting again, then so be it. You know, that's something that we can do. And the amount of support I've had over the years, you know, I've been doing this 10 years and I've done enough GoFundMe and GiveSendGo and Patreon and various other campaigns that I've run for myself and others. You're like, yeah, we've got a wonderful community that can support tiny YouTubers who are oppressed by the very platform that they found themselves watching them on. And none of us, me included, would be surviving in this arena if it wasn't for the support of the people who watch. And the people who watch, mush is echoing the sentiment of thousands, literally, because they all feel the same. You know, they tell me regularly, and the support is shown in a dollar bill amount when we do things like this. And QE's never had any support, to my memory. You know, he gets his bit of pocket money out of him doing his shows and getting a few super chats and that, but he's never really asked for anything. So when you're like, oh, right, well, this is good in a way, because it means we can actually show you with pound notes how much we appreciate you. And sometimes it does take that. And when it's because of a financial strife that you find yourself in, you tend to find that people are a lot more grateful. And that gratitude we got from QE was slightly unnerving when he's tentatively telling us things that we're dragging out of him. And then when we're explaining to him, we'll solve this, he's grateful. But John summarised it in one of the after shows when he's like, he's not calling me a numpty, it don't feel right.
It doesn't. It didn't. And to see someone who I have so much respect for and who is so indomitable be in a situation that's beyond his control was heartbreaking for me. And I just want him back to calling me a retard and telling me what I did wrong. And I think as a community, we need that.
Exactly. And like I say, when it is something, I don't want to make it sound menial, but when it is something financial, there's people in the audience that are like, I can easily justify this $20 to see QE hit like sometime next week rather than sometime next month or next year because things have snowballed or whatever. You know, you can quickly prevent these things from snowballing with a good community behind us. And I know already I've got a good community behind us. You know, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't, you know, scrape by as I do without that community. You know, I'm thanking them daily when I do my Patreon shout-outs. Speaking of which, shout out to Shatner's Bassoon. He says, meanwhile, the Globe Zealot channels get the dollar. Yeah, they do. And you could be bitter about that, Shatner's Bassoon, but you drive yourself nuts if you compare yourself to other YouTubers. So, on balance, I could say, well, Simon Dan gets every hit that's owed to me. Well, you could argue that, but then you could just compare us to fitness channels and say, well, they are massively outweighing us in terms of the YouTube algorithmic love that they're receiving. How unfair. You could go on and on and on. And you just drive yourself nuts if you do. All I can do is look at my stats and know whether they're going in the right direction, that's up, or not. And if they're not, do something about it. And focus solely on my stats, because they're the only ones I get access to. So, concerning myself with what the Globe opponents do because of some Congress decree, whatever the word is, that suggests YouTube need to put a tramp stamp under everything we do and promote Simon Dan ahead of us. Well, that's the world we live in. You know, I chose this subject. You know what I mean? I've only got myself to blame. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, Shantless Bassoon.
I will say, though, that when David challenged Goliath, it wasn't like David had a bunch of flowers thrown at his feet as he walked out to meet the giant. There will be obstacles and hurdles within our way as we try to spread the information that we understand. Doesn't mean you give up, and that doesn't mean you let someone who has effectively changed your understanding of the world alone. It becomes your duty, because that man has given of himself freely. I feel it's not a duty, but it feels like an obligation because of what he has done.
Well, he hasn't actually given himself freely. That's not strictly true. I had to twist his arm to become a YouTuber after a lot of incessant nagging. Anyway, shout out to the Flat Out Truth, who just contributed $5. Thank you very much indeed for contributing during the live stream. That really makes a difference, because obviously the people watching can see live interaction with the campaign. So thank you so much for contributing, Flat Out Truth. That $5 actually means more than you can imagine. So yeah, I'll put another link in the YouTube live stream chat. So if you did want to go and support the campaign, somebody else has shared. So there's now 3 shares rather than just the 2. And it will make a world of difference if you can share the campaign, if you can't contribute financially. So thank you again to Flat Out Truth for supporting the campaign. As I say, there is a link going by in the live stream chat now if you did want to support QE financially in his endeavours and woes that he is trying to overcome currently. And let's get him back broadcasting as quickly as possible. Okie dokie. Right. We will come back to that shortly. In the meantime, yesterday there was a couple of choices in terms of which video we were going to cover. We've got Jesse Lee Peterson, which is Dave, and we've got the Christian one. Those are the 2 videos that we didn't cover yesterday when we had a choice of 3. There was a 4th, but it was very sweary apparently, so we're not going to cover that. Are we in the mood to cover one that's Christian-centric, or should we cover another Dave video? We did cover him a few days ago, but I don't necessarily mind if we do choose to do Dave. 100 people watching? Maybe I should do a quick straw poll. Number 1 for Dave, number 2 for this Christian dude, Voice of Prophecy. So number 1 for Dave, number 2 for Prophecy. Let us know. You can see him on screen and get a look at whose face you like more. Dave's handsome face or this guy's glorious beard. You be the judge of which one you want to cover. I have no idea what's in either. The one that's from Dave is a longer video that has been timestamped though, so we're at the 1 minute 25 mark, so I assume someone's actually picked out something of relevance. Anyway, you tell me from the chat. A couple of 2s, a couple of 1s. I'll look in a few minutes. Did anybody on the panel have a preference for which one we cover? Hello?
Got back again, sorry.
Pick one.
Well, that's really helpful, Neil. You're normally so vocal about these things.
Yeah, I'm doing an audit and I haven't been paying attention.
You're busy working. I can appreciate a man that's putting in some graft, Neil. Level pegging in the audience, so you're going to have a deciding vote.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
You're really quiet. Is that you, Adam?
Yeah, I'm making it in favour of the 2s. About 6 or 7 to 3. Yeah, definitely 2.
Yeah, I've just seen
I'll
go with 2.
Or
Yeah.
if he's got a nice beard, let's give him a go.
Well, I mean, he has got a very, very majestic beard. Would you not agree? Look how well trimmed that is. Right, we're going to do this, dude. Is he pro, con? Does anybody know about this? This YouTube channel is called The Voice of Philosophy, and he's not a massive YouTuber. Yeah, please leave him a comment and throw him a few views. As always, I'm putting a link to this particular videographer in the YouTube Lives chat. So please go while we are doing the call to action. I know there's quite a few going on right now, but there is 100 people watching. So like me, he's got a smaller channel. Please share in the YouTube algorithmic love. Go along to his channel. Let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. And just hint at the fact that we have covered his video. I don't know if it's going to be positive or negative. Obviously, I'm doing this completely cold based on a suggestion from my Master B consortium of contributors to this show. So there's the link going by. Please click on it. Let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. The idea being that if he were to respond, he would put a link to my video and help me in the YouTube algorithmic love that I definitely don't receive. We were just discussing how Congress have basically shoved us to the bottom of lists effectively via YouTube's or the demands of Congress to YouTube. Anyway, enough of my bleatings about the shares that we don't get, the impressions that we don't get, therefore the ad revenue that we don't get. But hopefully this guy will appreciate that if he was to do a response, because he's in the same boat. He's not got a massive channel. So Voice of Prophecy is the name of it. The video is called What Have Christians Historically Believed About the Shape of the Earth? So that's the name of his video. Voice of Philosophy, as I say, is the channel. And we'll get into this unless there's anybody that's got any comment before we do.
Just one. Who cares? If that's the title. I'm not so fussed about the argument that's going off in the Christian community that I'm, with part of and paying attention to. Isn't really focused on what Christians believed. It's what Scripture says should be the focus for me.
Okay, well, we'll see if there's
Correct.
Sense.
Correct.
We'll see if his assessment in terms of Bible literacy is realistic or not once we get into it. Anybody else? 104 people watching. Let's get into it.
We're going to do it again, and I'm hoping for the last time. If you've had people bothering you with all that really weird flat earth stuff, trying to tell you the flat earth is the historical Christian position, well, you might just want to see today's episode.
Yes, please.
Hold on a minute. Are we just solely going to look at this in the context of a historical narrative?
I mean, that seems like a reasonable standard to assess it on if he's talking about the Bible and what it says. Would you not agree?
Yeah, but the thing is this is an objective fact we're supposed to be discussing, whether the Earth is flat or is curving. I feel like it's just you would first have to establish what the Earth is with evidence before you could judge them.
Well, let's say if he does, maybe he's going to bring some globe proof that I haven't seen in the Bible.
The standards that will no doubt be presented can and will be assessed by him and us on its historic standards, because it's only reasonable if you're dealing with the Bible. That is not to say that at every opportunity that presents itself will point out the facts of the matter in terms of the actual nature of Earth based on its measurements, notwithstanding every single evidence-based proof that we will and do present daily. He'll get a barrage of those too every opportunity, John.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that the way he set this video up, I don't agree with. Who cares if what they believed about the nature of reality then, if you don't know what the nature of reality is now? You know what I mean? It's kind of like
I do and I don't, because
what are you doing?
Thinks he does know, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. That's why I was kind of picking on him. You got it. I'll shut up now.
Already balls things up. Just give me a second.
Yeah, don't be making fun of. If you live in a glass house, don't throw rocks, or your cousins. You know what I mean? That's kind of what this is going to be.
Don't throw rocks. Nice Michelle Thaler reference. All right, let's get into it.
Can't hear nothing.
You are? What do you mean?
I can't hear anything.
Can't hear
I
anything?
could hear the music.
You're not getting the music, Neil?
No, nothing in G+.
Nope.
Nope.
And Discord is fine.
Yeah, sounds fine in Discord.
Why aren't you getting anything in G+? That's bizarre. Okay, I don't know why. We'll have to come back to that.
Okay, I really debated whether or not we should do this topic again today because, well, I've done it once in the past and it kind of brought some really interesting people out of the woodwork. Apparently, it actually made some people mad, and more people than you might think. Sadly, there's enough of what we're going to talk about going around right now that I really think it's becoming something of a widespread problem. It's not going away. So, I've decided to address this one last time, even though I think it's pretty silly. What am I talking about? It's the flat earth conspiracy people. And honestly, it's hard to believe that we need to talk about this in the 21st century.
Can you hear it now? I've shared it with you.
Yes, I can hear it, and I'm tired of flat Earth being a conspiracy. Let's talk about the real conspiracy, the one you think we're in.
This has got multiple layers, though, hasn't it? Like yesterday, he could be referring to what is regurgitated by many a quote-unquote flat earther, which is the Feast of Nonsense. Now, when he says flat earth conspiracy, I can only distance myself from the idea that he possibly has about what a flat earther is based on what is punted into the mainstream about flat earthers. So, for now, let's work on the premise that he's talking about what a stereotypical flat earther is perceived to be when he critiques this. Obviously, we'll point out how we distance ourselves from that particular stereotype as we go. How about that?
Yeah, he's going to bring up the Feast of Nonsense people, yes.
There just seems to be this relentless group of people who think that they've come into a very special body of knowledge. They've uncovered a vast conspiracy by NASA and every single government agency on the face of the planet to hide the fact that the Earth is indeed flat. Now, just in case you...
Nope, that's wrong.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
We don't think we have special knowledge. We do not think we have special knowledge. You know it too, sir. And if you try to show us some of your evidence for a sphere, we'll show that you know it too.
You belong to that group, let me just say that you're going to be wasting your time by writing me letters because I'm not going to answer them. And I know some of you are going to do it anyway, but I'm really not going to answer your letters. And
I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, we've appealed for people to leave you comments, which is no different. And obviously, you don't have to respond to us when we point out how Earth is measured flat for your sphere belief. You know, that's something that you can just ignore, if you choose to. You know, you can carry on in your sphere belief and not advance your understanding of how that sphere came to pass. Now, we offer that advanced heliocentric understanding without prejudice. That is to say, we offer it to heliocentrists as much as we do flat earthers. The origin of your faith in a globe comes from a flat Earth. That is to say, the measurements of Earth get turned into a globe, but those measurements are flat.
And yes, I absolutely believe in the Bible. Anybody who watches this program knows that I do. And no, I don't have to give any more answers after today. I really don't. All I'm going to do today is point out something I think is really important. You see, there's this misguided idea going around that the medieval Christian church actually believed the earth was flat.
Okay, he said the church. Do we take umbrage with his phraseology at this stage, or should we just play on a little bit more?
I'll allow him some latitude. Allow him some latitude, you know. This is,
that it took the likes of Galileo, Copernicus, and finally Columbus and Magellan to disabuse the church of this idea. And honestly, this is important to think about because
it's the standard rhetoric that the Western world are punted about exactly that. In fact, it's spun that there's oppression for some of these characters for punting out the idea that's true, that it's a ball, over and above the obviously accepted rhetoric at the time. If they're to be persecuted for suggesting it's a ball, the antithesis. That is to say that it's obviously got to be accepted that it is flat for them to be persecuted for suggesting it's a ball, as the rhetoric suggests. Now, you're trying to disavow this when it is just the current mainstream rhetoric. Unless someone's going to correct me, am I wrong in that?
No, that's
No.
my understanding why he would be challenging that or presenting that as something that's their story. Do you know what I mean?
So
That's
he
what-
Yeah.
immediately he's immediately conceding his own argument. Is that what you're
Yeah.
telling me?
No, he's immediately stepped into being an anti-flat earther. Now, he doesn't know what stereotype category he's going to be put in when he's making this video, but we do. He's an anti-flat earther. What defines an anti-flatty? Well, somebody that obviously first and foremost braces against flat earth, as this particular person is and many others do, but also, very specifically, their willingness to reject their own rhetoric in favour of opposing flat earthers. So, in order to oppose flat earthers, he's rejecting his own rhetoric. Anti-flat earther.
But his own statement was that the medieval church did not believe the earth was flat. And then he's making the statement that there were people that were persecuted who proved it was a globe. It is hitting you. That is stupid. But he's disproved himself.
I want to hear biblical proof of a sphere. If not, all of this is just nonsense that we hear constantly.
Well, we're a couple of minutes in. We'll see how many Bible references we get for you, Neil. Let's carry on.
I've discovered a decidedly religious tone with a lot of these flat earth folks. I mean, there really are secular flat earth people as well, but from where I sit as a minister, they don't seem to get quite as worked up as the religious folks.
Now, I don't necessarily feel affected by this. It's like I don't feel any disdain towards him because I don't feel like he's talking about me. You know what I mean?
He's not.
Yes.
He is not.
Referring to Neil.
He's talking to Neil.
He's not
Neil's
referring to Neil.
Neil's not spewing the feast of
No.
nonsense.
What he just said about who gets the most irate about this topic, and you can see why he's getting people being irate at him, because he's a minister. So of course people like him, we're not overly giving him grief because we don't see it as a deniement of scripture. So there's an added layer to the people that he's talking about that are getting irate, because they're not just irate about him not recognizing reality, they're angry that he's not recognizing scripture. What was Neil's put in there? Yeah, it was, when we're going to hear a little bit of scripture, you said.
Yeah, but that's not what he's talking about. See, I'm like Nathan. I don't consider me being part of who he's talking about. He's talking about the Feast of Nonsense people, I guarantee it.
He's talking about flat earth Christians are more militant towards him than your non-secular flat earthers.
Yeah, the Feast of Nonsense Christians. You're right.
Well, that's because he is Christian, correct? That's a matter of what would you call it? Like if you're in a group and you hold a different view to that group, of course people are going to challenge you. You know what I mean? Like that. It's just because he is a Christian and there are Christians who are flat earthers. Of course, they will be more likely to challenge him. Vehemently, or not vehemently, but be outspoken.
I think that'd be an ecumenical question.
Believers appear to think they've stumbled across a great conspiracy that must be exposed, that your salvation might be at stake if you don't accept what they're telling you.
Well, then
That's not true.
I was going to say, then they're idiot Christians. If they think your
Yeah, that's not true.
salvation's at
That's
stake.
not true at all.
If you don't understand that Earth is measured flat, you might not be going to heaven. Really?
I've had these people show up at events where I'm speaking, and they'll follow me around, telling me that they're worried about how God's going to deal with me if I don't sit down and listen to them. And I can assure you, according to this book, my salvation has nothing to do with the shape of the earth.
Yep, completely agree.
I agree,
Nathan, if
but the way
hold on,
you
if that's
explain-
happening, if that is happening, then that's a bad showing on Flat Earth's part. I'm sorry. If there are people
Hold on.
following him around then that's sad news.
If there are people within the body of Christ that he is a part of, the church in which they glorify God, who are trying to tell him something and he's flat out ignoring them without any valid reason, yes, I think that you will have to justify that when you stand before him.
That's a different story, John. He doesn't have to say anything pertaining to the nature of Earth.
It is a different story, but what you're saying is it's unreasonable as a good, upstanding Christian to ignore your fellow Christian who is attempting to appeal to you. He's demeaned that as they're following me around, telling me I'm going to not be right with God if I don't listen to them. And you're saying, yeah.
Absolutely. It is part of you as a Christian to want to hear the concerns of your fellow Christians. If you're not doing that, you're not being very Christian. And now, if someone else disagrees with that, I would like to know why I'm wrong.
That's fair enough.
Well, I think the way you went about it and the way Tent went about it is perfect. If they're not going about it the way you guys have done it, then they're harassing the guy. So we don't know because we weren't there. This is his story.
Right. I'm just going off
But
what
now
you
let's get
said, though.
back to this idea that the church has historically taught that the earth is flat and only changed that in recent history. This is an idea that...
Well, that is absolutely factually true. We can show the history. We can show the changes. We can document the people who changed it by name. What is he just trying to rewrite history? If so, this is pretty sad.
that some atheists love to promulgate because it makes Christians look a little ridiculous. But wouldn't you know it? It's not actually true. The church did not teach that the earth is flat.
Why would they? I mean, what is written in the Bible versus what is worthy of teaching people are two very different things. Now, in terms of being able to back the principle of earth being flat with biblical text, that's not exactly that difficult. Backing the sphericity with biblical text is nigh on impossible. You've got to fudge it with circles and various other things. But that really isn't the point of your suggestion that the church didn't teach that it was flat. Oh, come on, let's go to Sunday school. What are we going to learn about today? A bit of geometry, children. I'm pretty sure they'll be teaching them like life lessons, you know, stuff that's useful. And in terms of Christianity, I don't see how useful it is to know the bleeding obvious. Why would that be a lesson at a church? Am I missing something? Why would this be an objection by him?
Because he's playing with words right now. Because they didn't explicitly teach that the earth was flat, therefore they were teaching it was a globe. If I let that non sequitur hang, then it is unopposed, and that is what they believed.
You know, they didn't teach how four-stroke engines worked in the Bible, did they?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They didn't teach French. They didn't teach woodwork, cooking. No, there's lots of things they didn't teach. But what they did teach was scripture and religion, because it was the church. If you wanted to learn about, so he's true what he's saying, but it's just not applicable. It's a bit straw money, isn't it?
And neither did medieval Christian scholars. We've known the earth as a sphere for a really, really long time.
Because they taught it in this example. Go ahead, let's see if that's the next words out of his mouth, because that's the standard he's just set, isn't it?
Of course, that doesn't mean that the idea of a flat earth never showed up among Christians.
That seems like a very ham-handed segue. You laid down a standard that you claim we didn't achieve that was non sequitur, and then made a baseless assertion that was backed by nothing. Not even your own standard you just laid down. What's the word for that? Hypocrite?
Christians at all, because it did.
And thus, and if you are a Christian and you see a fellow member or a fellow Christian who is being a hypocrite, it is behooving upon you to try to point out the hypocrisy to them so that they may repent and change the way that they're acting. So his appeal to they're following him around and everything, they're concerned about you, dude, and you're dismissing them.
Yeah, you should be flattered. I mean, obviously, if it's bordering on stalky and they're taking pictures of you and camping outside your house, that's a different matter. But if they're trying to appeal to you so they can have your ear for a few moments, and they're feeling justified in telling you God will smite you, which again I feel is a bit over the top, and you know, let's not rehash that.
And it's happening again. But today, it's the history of how this happened that I want you to think about, because it's not what you've been told, not even
Just give us a Bible verse. You just made your basis assertion. I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but come on.
close. You really can find ancient Christian writers who promoted the idea of a flat earth. But
What? Isn't that the contrapositive of what you just decried, followed up with a baseless assertion? There are scholars that taught flat earth. Did I hear that right? Am I going loopy? Am I just
No,
hearing?
he's doing a good case of destroying his own argument so far.
I want you to think about
No,
because
what he's doing, what he's getting ready to do is outskirt scholars taught the earth was flat, but as a general consensus among the church, it was always a sphere. That's what he's trying to push. He's going to push that idea, but he will never say it.
Okay, let's see if you're right.
it's not what you've been told, not even close. You really can find ancient Christian writers who promoted the idea of a flat earth. But here's the catch. There were only two of them. And until the 17 and 1800s, the rest of Christianity didn't take those guys seriously on just about anything they said. And I'll tell you who they were in just a moment. But before I get to that, let me introduce you to two other guys who were very popular speakers back in the 19th century, because
Who do you reckon he's going to pick? No guesses. Fair enough.
they traveled the countryside telling people that science and the Bible were irredeemably opposed to each other. Their names were John William Draper and Andrew Dickson White. Back in
Ever heard of him?
I haven't.
No, me neither.
1874, John William Draper published a book called A History of the Conflict Between Religion and Science. It was a bit of a manifesto, really a polemic work designed to ridicule the intelligence of most Christians. And because Draper had published a very popular history of science before he put this book out, and because he was a very popular and gifted speaker, a lot of people took this work to heart.
Pound says it doesn't actually cover science. What do you reckon? Never heard of it, but I'm going to call that immediately.
Now, I'll give him credit where credit is due. He rightly pointed to the rise of Constantine in the marriage of church and state as a key turning point here in the West, a point where the church began to prize political power more than it did preaching the gospel. If you've been watching
Wasn't the book titled Religion versus Science? Right?
this show, you know I believe that's true. The marriage of church and state back in the 4th century was not a good thing and led to some really embarrassing episodes for the church.
So far, nothing to do with science.
You know, like the burning of heretics at the stake and those kinds of things. But then Mr. Draper went one step further and suggested that the church rejected rationality and science at the very same time. Here's what he actually wrote. The antagonism we thus witness between religion and science is the continuation of a struggle that commenced when Christianity began to attain political power.
Meaningless word salad.
Now, you'll notice that this is a popular sentiment to this day.
Really? Let's define some of those terms then. See how sentimental I get about it, shall we?
Much to the chagrin of a growing number of
The chagrin. Love it.
scientists who now realize that what you and I just read isn't actually true. The other guilty party in this story was the guy by the name of Andrew Dickson White, who was also a brilliant public speaker who never really had much trouble attracting an audience. When the American Civil War broke out, his speaking tours were no longer possible.
Not even funny, but this is dragging out a bit. Do we ever get to the globe proof or the anti-flat Earth, or what's this actually got to do with the shape of the Earth so far? This little last couple of minutes of waffle. Am I missing something again? Just feel like it.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It seems to be a poisoning of the well fallacy against the church for them to be able to make rational scientific decisions, and that they would be inhibiting the development of any scientific progress. That seems to be what that guy's point is. Nothing, like I say, nothing to do with the nature of the earth, just to do with how the merging of state and church inhibited, I suppose, scientific and technological progression. Seems to be the claim there.
So he ended up directing his efforts to the political scene in New York State. But he really, really, really missed his years of study and research. And so he enlisted the help of a really good friend, the Quaker Ezra Cornell, and the two of them founded a new university together.
Okay, finally we got a player we know.
And you probably guessed which university it is. It's Cornell University.
Yale. Oh.
The idea behind this new school was that people who taught there would be completely free of all external influences, including religion. Now, a lot of people found that idea kind of repulsive in that day, even dangerous, because they feared what might happen if their kids...
Oh my God, do we ever get to the actual meat of what he's claiming in regards to the subject matter?
Kids got an exclusively secular education.
It's not the poisoning of the well, because this institution, won't be affected by the church. It's gonna go. It's a ball, or it's gonna go. It's flat. I'm confused, really, as to whichever way. If that's what happens, the decision is it's not supporting his argument.
Right. Like I said, he can never prove his position. All he can do is convolute the matter to make the people that are trying to speak to him about what he is stating and in a concerned fashion seem like they're just psychos who are stalking him. That's all this is about, plain and simple.
Yeah, but it's boring. I lost interest about 2.5 minutes ago.
And so these two guys got a lot of opposition.
Are you having trouble trying to keep up with your professor?
Yeah, I am. It's really boring.
And the opposition made Mr. White a little bitter. So he composed a brand new lecture series he called The Battlefields of Science.
What? Battlefields of Science? Oh my God.
The story he told? I'm sure you can guess it. He said religion is the absolute opposite of science. In fact...
Really? Religion is the opposite of a cause and effect methodology, is it? This is such nonsense.
In fact, it's an enemy to science and...
Religion and belief. That would be to say faith is the enemy of knowing things. I can put it in a context that actually makes some sense. It's not true, though.
A problem that had to be dealt with. The New York Daily Tribune printed that original lecture, and the rest is history. By 1896, Andrew White had published a really big book called A History of the Warfare of Science with Theology in Christendom.
Even the title is just a string of word salad, isn't it?
No, it's exactly what I said. See, it's got nothing to do with the topic. It's like, say, how the church and the marriage of the church and state will inhibit scientific growth. How it will prevent it going in certain directions. That's lovely. It's got nothing to do with anything.
I'll rephrase then. It's word salad in relation to the topic we're covering. We're responding to this because it's a video about what have Christians historically believed about the shape of the earth. This has absolutely no relevance.
Well,
He told everybody.
Go on.
The only thing he's saying seems to be that the opinion of the church is kind of invalid anyway, because they don't know what they're talking about with regards to science. That seems to be the point he's making. Do you agree, John? Because I am listening. But he's not helping.
I don't know how you put this diametrically opposed, because I don't know how you diametrically oppose belief, you know what I mean, because you can accept something without evidence that is provable with evidence, so like when you're talking about whether you know it or believe it, it is opposing each other really, but it's not like it's you know what I mean? Like I don't see that they are one completely excludes the other.
No,
It's just when you know you can't believe. You know what I mean?
we can make examples with flat Earth itself and flat Earthers, and we're having to pepper this with disclaimers because of it. There's plenty of people in this arena that's flat Earth or the nature of Earth debate that believe Earth is flat. Is that incongruent with what I know about how Earth is measured? Nope. It's just I know it and they believe it. Is one diametrically opposed or the opposite of the other? No, they're very, very closely related in this instance. Doesn't mean that one is a substitute for the other. Yeah, there's no substituting knowing damn well that it's flat and that's how it's measured versus, well, because I can show how not ball-shaped it is, I'm pretty sure I believe strongly it's flat. Because what else could it be? That's not as strong, is it? But they're not diametrically opposed. This is being peppered with the idea that science is somehow involved in this. So you're like, well, anything other than an empirically validated methodology would be the only thing that you could set up as the antithesis of science, because that's what science is. But this isn't discussing that. And it certainly isn't discussing the nature of Earth. We've not even got close to that yet.
Right. Science is not belief because it is acceptance with evidence, right? He's trying to talk about belief, acceptance without evidence, and put it in a situation where they're opposed as a straw man for the atheists, I believe, or is he trying to make that his argument?
Everybody that it was a response to what happened when they founded Cornell. I tried to be nice, he said, but now I'm going to play offense. Both Draper and White insisted that only a simpleton would continue to believe in the words of the Bible. And that's an idea you'll still find running rampant on the battlefield of modern social media. I'm sure you've seen some of these people in their posts. Oh, believe in fairy tales all you want, but I'm going to be dedicated to reason and science. So, what would you guess would be one of the biggest points that Draper and White presented in these books of theirs?
I really couldn't give two shiny. Earth is measured flat. We navigate the world with use of angle measurements to the stars that have formed our mapping system. The grid system that we commonly use on maps, that's latitude and longitude, is measured flat. It's how the entire system has been developed. And all globe claims for you to justify in your mind as being already proven, for you to then have this roundabout ramble about nothing to justify why you believe Christians have got an idea about Earth being flat. It's just so non sequitur to the fact of the matter. Earth is flat. That's how it's measured, navigated, and built on. That's how it's observed. It's obviously, navigatably flat. That's what I've got to say on this.
Go
ahead, John.
I would like to say though, if you're a Christian and there are Christians who are concerned about you, wanting to talk to you about a topic that you are entertaining, you shouldn't dismiss them like they're stalkers and idiots, because that makes you a dick.
Well, I'm not that guy. I'm not stalking this guy. I have no idea who he is. I don't know his name, and frankly, I don't care. I'll forget him entirely once we finish doing this live stream. That's the truth of the matter. Yeah? But what I'm telling him, he can take or leave. He doesn't have to concern himself that I'm going to be stalking him or I really want him to know my truth. I couldn't care less. If you understand how Earth is measured or not, isn't of any concern to me whatsoever. Yeah, I'm not like the people who do concern themselves with you, who want your ear. Me, I'm just making a show. Yeah, I'm reacting to this because you cover our subject matter in this. Or don't, as the case may boringly be.
You know, in my life, I had a woman that followed me around every day of my life and pointed out to me everything I did wrong that she seen. She was a stalker, and just it was annoying.
Did she also pay the
But she's
mortgage with
also
you?
my mother. No, it was my mother.
Yeah,
in
I
this
knew it would be a
example.
relation. Yeah, that's
Don't
it.
talk about people that care about you like that.
Exactly. People who care about you. These people who are appealing to him. I'm talking to him now when I say you. The people who are walking around following you, trying to appeal to you, and using extreme methodology to try and appeal to reason when they try and have your ear and you refuse it. They're people who love you. They're people who are concerned about you. They're people who have your best interests at heart. Unlike me, I genuinely don't care about you. You are nobody to me, and you will remain that after we finish this coverage. But I'm telling you what they want to get your ear on. And probably, no offence to them, wouldn't do quite as good a job in terms of the matter-of-fact Earth being measured flat bit. Because that's a new rhetoric for most flat earthers, including us, the ones putting it out. So I'm not going to expect them to do the same job that I'm doing right now. But what John is trying to put to you is recognise when people are concerned about you. You dismiss it like, these people are really concerned about me and how I feel about things. Bastards. Like, wake up and smell the coffee, mate. Realise what you're saying about the people who are obviously showing concern about you. Would it really hurt you to listen to them for a few minutes? Even if you'd necessarily dismiss them after the fact. Yeah? They want your ear because they have concern for you. Unlike me, I'll just tell you how it is. Earth's flat for your sphere belief. A flat measurement's required for you to believe in a sphere. I'm not going to demean you for that, but I could. I won't, and the people who are chasing you, stalking you, they're not either. They genuinely have concern for you.
The church, they said, has historically taught that the earth is flat, and they even persecuted the people who said that it wasn't. The ancient Greeks, they said, on the other hand, they were dedicated to science, and they knew the earth was a sphere. But the church, being steeped in ignorance, refused to accept that idea because the Bible told.
Because it's a category error. What the Greeks knew because of science, that Earth's a sphere. We knew a shape because of a cause and effect reasoning that deals with phenomena. That seems like, well, let's not pepper and sugarcoat it. It is a category error.
Don't worry, though. Mr. Faulkner will correct him.
It doesn't need correcting. He's just set it up because the Bible told them otherwise. See, now, if he's a historian, I can understand why he's mitigating this story like this. But he's a pastor, isn't he? And as he stated at the start, a Bible-believing Christian. So that's surely the point that you should be making your judgment on.
No, mate,
Yeah,
Greeks.
but on the last statement he made, Danny Faulkner will correct him on, just as Nathan did. He is in an absolute category error when he's appealing to science for this. Danny Faulkner is a PhD Christian astrophysicist, or astronomer, by the way, dude. He makes you look like a pup in this pond. Maybe you should pay attention to him when he tells you it's not science.
Notice how I'm not saying nothing?
No, you are saying something. We just heard you, Neil. Shush.
Told them
I'm tired
otherwise.
of
Today, what these guys were teaching has come to be known as the conflict thesis, this idea that science and Christianity are at odds with each other. To this day, you'll see some skeptics using that idea to ridicule people of faith. But there's a problem. Either Draper and White didn't know their history, or they were being dishonest.
Or neither they or you know what science is.
Because their theory doesn't hold anywhere near the water that some people think it does.
And in his use of that word, he confirmed that he definitely doesn't know what science is.
I mean, did the church really persecute Columbus for saying the earth was a sphere?
The word was theory, by the way, in case you didn't realise. This is where he poisons the well of his own rhetoric, anti-flat earthism incoming.
Did the church really teach that the earth was flat? The answer is absolutely not. And as soon as we take a really quick break, I'll come back to tell you what really happened.
Quick break? This is a YouTube video. Okay. We'll cut to commercial in this YouTube video then, maybe.
Here at the Voice of Prophecy, we're committed to creating top-quality programming for the whole family, like
Oh, wow. Tell me more.
our audio adventure series, Discovery Mountain. Discovery Mountain is a Bible-based program for kids of all ages and backgrounds. Your family will enjoy the faith-building stories from this small mountain summer camp and
Hey, don't assume what my family will enjoy.
down. With 24 seasonal episodes every year and fresh content every week, there's always a new adventure just on the horizon.
You'll need a flat earth for that horizon.
Here's a problem I
good.
find when it comes to all this flat earth stuff.
Say again?
Said very good. You'll need a flat earth for that horizon.
There's a handful of very vocal so-called believers who take advantage of social media to publish their misguided notions. What they do is insist that the Christian faith has always taught a flat earth until recent history. But then, in order to accommodate the evolutionists they teach, the church went apostate and agreed that the earth is round, or it's always some kind of variation of that.
Well, more like they were part
No,
of...
he's gonna
Go ahead, Eli.
he's gonna tell us what happened. So why isn't he telling us what happened? Like Nicholas Copernicus, who'd lived with his uncle and came up in the church with his uncle as a priest and was up to become a priest. And the church wanting him to get finished with the calendar that we still use today. Where's that story coming in?
He doesn't know
Where's
that.
the story of all of the Christians being persecuted and shut outside their doors like Martin Luther, who put the thesis on the door because all he wanted to do was reform, not actually leave the church. Reform what? Well, they're sitting telling people in the church that they're moving around the sun. You think they'll have a problem with that, given their cosmology right in Genesis, book 1? Where's that story at? Anyway.
Oh, good rant.
The problem is none of that's true. The idea that the church believed in a flat earth was propagated by the Lite.
In his edit, he's put in a little subscribe and bell thing. And like always, I'm going to do a proper call to action for this dude, because last time it was sort of marred slightly by me doing call to action for QE's Give, Send, Go. Obviously, notwithstanding, please go and support QE. But I want to support this guy in the YouTube algorithmic love that we definitely don't receive from YouTube. So I'm sticking a link to his video in the YouTube live stream chat for the 120 odd people that are watching. So click on that link, let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Hopefully he'll do a response video. Hopefully he'll address the fact that Earth is measured flat for he and the church to extrapolate out the sphere that he believes he is on based on those flat Earth measurements. Go ahead.
He brings flat Earth.
Hold on, Neil. Go ahead, John.
Oh, sorry. I will say as a fellow Christian, and I'm sure Neil would get behind me on this, sir, if you have people who are within the body of Christ with you who are concerned, you should be listening to those concerns and trying to sit down and reason with them or understand their point of view. You shouldn't be making them out to be stalkers. That's wrong. And I wouldn't do it to you. And I don't think it's very Christian of you.
If they're coming correctly with concerns and things that they've seen in the scriptures or have not seen in the scriptures, but yet we're told, then he should be sitting down with them and opening up the Word of God. That's what he's supposed to do as a pastor, and showing them in the Word of God why things are what they are, whatever they're bringing to the table. But obviously they don't do that because there is no ball.
It's very easy to, look at people as a them and a they, but let's be clear. I think that we should always take a person by person basis, because with this guy, he reminds me of all the other people that make what a church is look bad because he has some type of capacity or some type of title. And it means nothing if you're not living up to that. So I don't fault, church people or any people because of a title. It's, are you living up to the capacity or not? And right now, he's not doing a good job.
Well said.
You're on fire. Go on, Neil.
No, I agree, 100%.
Okie dokie. Right, I'm going to just cover, as we have had a couple of contributions come in, QE's Give Send Go campaign. So big shout out to Kelrick. Hopefully I've said your name right. Thank you very much for supporting the campaign. And Dank, big spender, $100. Wow. Woo-hoo-hoo. Thank you very much indeed to both of you for supporting the campaign. Also Flat Out Truth, who kicked off the live stream contributions today. So thank you very much to all three of you for supporting during this live stream. Up to $900 on this campaign, so very, very well done. About a third of the way there. Brilliant stuff. Please, smash the share button if you cannot necessarily afford to contribute to the campaign. That's obviously perfectly reasonable. Not everybody can. But I will also stick a link to the GoFundMe campaign in the live stream chat now. Hopefully the people who've come back from... Oh, you've done it already, Adam. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah. Please go and share or give generously to the Give, Send, Go, got it right this time, Quantum Eraser campaign. Right, let's get back into this video.
Of Draper and White. But where did they get that idea? Well, they got it from two ancient Christians named Lactantius and Cosmas, who were converts from paganism. What the skeptics will tell you is that all the church fathers believed in a flat earth. But again, that's not true.
I'm bored of hearing what people will tell me, and then boring references to people and no connections to the actual subject matter with the people he's talking about. I just don't... I'm at a bit of a loss with this. Anybody feel the same way?
Yeah, because he's never actually produced a single document that shows that the church, of whatever time he's claiming, taught as factually this is what the earth was. It's just been a huge straw man because he wants to look down on people who are concerned about him. He's a jerk.
Well, I'm going to appeal to our Christian overlord Bible U in the chat. How do you feel about this, Paula? Should we continue? Is it good, or have you had enough of this? We'll find out from...
I was reading some of Paula's comments, and there's one she said, it does make a comment on Paula, the non-believers, which is interesting that, as Paula says, he's invoked salvation there. Interesting because he began his statement saying the nature of the earth has got nothing to do with that. So whatever you believe, it doesn't matter because your salvation is not dependent on that, which I think we all agreed with. But I don't know whether it was just ad harm. He's very angry at these people, but he did use that as an attack. I'm just trying to find what the exact phrase was. I'm sure he said, there you go. So-called believers, he's judging salvation on this issue, is what Paula had noted, he said earlier.
He did say that. Oh my goodness. Good catch, Paula.
I just came. I missed it. What was said? I just left and came back. I had a call.
He said people that believe that they taught a flat earth in medieval times were so-called believers. He's basing their salvation on this. I missed it, but I remember him saying it. Good job, Paula.
Yeah, in answer to my question, she says, this is cringe. But yeah, I completely agree. But should we continue? That's the question. I mean, we can just dissect it after the fact. But it's just actually listening to him is cringe. So I'm in two minds whether or not to stop here, sort of 10 minutes into a 20-minute video or 20+ minute video.
Hold on, I've been going in and out. Has he brought any ball proof to the scriptures yet?
He's brought nothing. It's been absolutely tedious.
Why can you rewind back to where he begins to say, let me tell you what happened?
Rewind isn't going to happen. I'll play a bit more.
True. Go ahead and read all you want from the early Christians about the shape of the earth, And you'll only find two people who actually said that, Lactantius and Cosmos. Now, if you're watching the video version of this, I didn't have a picture of Cosmos, so this is just one of his maps I've put up on the screen.
Yeah, here's the issue. Oh, go ahead, Neil.
Go ahead, Eli. I'll go after you, Eli. Go ahead.
All right, so here's the issue. Like, the only people who are concerned with the shape of the earth are the ones making a claim to a shape. There's no reason for someone to say the shape of the earth is flat. They just describe things in the Bible like, the Sodom and Gomorrah residing on a plain, a large plain. Like, it's very descriptive in that way. But it doesn't speak about a shape of the earth at all. So why are you even talking about that? That's not what the church was talking about. They were talking about whether or not we were living in a heliocentric system.
Whether or not what? You broke up at the end.
They weren't talking about the shape of the earth. They were talking about whether or not we lived in a heliocentric system.
I don't have to go to what some guy said how many 100 years ago. I could go right to the Bible now. I don't need to hear from any other people. I could read right from the scriptures. And it does not exist as a ball in the scriptures.
Okay.
I thought you was going to say I could go to the beach right now, because that would be true. You could go to the beach right now, and I assure you, if you're my height, around 6 feet, the distance to the horizon is 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height feet. So the water's edge, so to speak, should be about 3 miles from me. I can assure you that has never been the case. I've been to the beach many times.
Right. Well, we will get to reprimanding Eli for telling us how far Earth curve should be in the after show. But with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus Panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow.
Oh, okay. I was like, no, he ain't serious about that. Nathan's messing. They're both kidding. Because I just walked back in the room. I was like, no way, Elijah's trying to argue for that.
Come on, I ain't been that busy. I'm not going to, what, you think I'm going to be gone for 2 months and come back to talk about Ether?
Not Ether.
No, but... Oh, sorry.
You told us how far the horizon should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it shouldn't.
On a second. He brought up
Right.
What's the problem with the Black Swan?
No, I'm not. Right. I'm not justifying it.
Now, are you addressing measurement when you're talking about how far away the horizon should be, since it is a distance? I think that's only fair if we're talking about a geometric claim that we should have a measurement. How would that be relevant? How would that be relevant to the topic, this horizon?
It wouldn't. I said, oh, Neil, I thought you were going to say beach, and then I segued.
Well, now, I heard someone mention that we could measure curvature with the horizon. Why wouldn't that be a valid point to discuss?
We could ask Nathan, but I fired him.
It's only a valid point to discuss if somebody makes the claim. I will reiterate that. And you don't already know.
No one made the claim. It was a non sequitur on my part.
Relax,
Good
dogs,
enough.
relax. Eli was kidding around. He thought I said beach. My goodness. Hound dogs.
Like, it would be a valid point of contention if you did not have the understanding that we have now. So that means to other people, it does seem like a valid point of contention, so it is worth addressing. I will say that.
Did we enjoy covering that guy?
Oh yeah, it was
Not
roses.
really.
Yeah, I
It was
didn't want
as
to.
No, I
much
didn't.
it was
I
as
wanted
much
you to
fun
keep
as
going.
watching paint dry.
I wanted the rest of it. I was thoroughly into it.
Why didn't you pipe up?
Well, I did. I
Did
mean, I
you?
wanted to rewind it, for God's sake, because I missed some.
Oh, fair enough. You did say that.
I don't want to call him a jerk, but I think because of his beliefs, he is acting like a jerk. I don't know how else to say it, because he believes he knows something. He is looking down at people that are concerned about him in a way that he's portraying them as stalkers. And I don't know how else to describe that besides saying that's kind of a jerk thing to do.
He seemed stuck on the reaction part. It was like everything that he said was to like react to something that he's been brought before, and yet, yeah, I don't think anybody really cared for that in chat. Because he was just a big kind of nothing burger.
Yeah, as I say, it was tedious. It was like watching paint dry, pulling teeth, whatever you want to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough because, I mean, we've all experienced being wrong when we really thought we were right. And that's just where he's at right now. He's very wrong, and he's looking at this all wrong. He's not listening to what people are telling him.
Well, he's going a little bit. He's going a little bit past not listening. He's going as far as to insult and portray them as villainous for trying to talk to him. And the only reason I say that is because he said, "Don't write me a letter. I won't read it." That's writing someone a letter is not stalking. You know, like the only justification you can use for unwanted attention is when someone like being a stalker in those situations. But if someone is trying to talk to you and that's the way you're treating them, that isn't right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, when you don't treat someone on a person by person basis, you're teetering on being a bigot. Because why else would you not? Sorry about the bus. Why else would you not read a letter from someone who's trying to tell you something? Why would you not? Because you already have a preconceived bias and you're not willing to listen to what they have to say because you already have it figured out. So that's how you become a bigot.
Yeah, but how can you be a pastor and not be in the slight bit at all interested in a potential flock member of what they want to talk to you about? And
well, when the problem with how I say what's its problem is begging the question. So that's going to come out in many different ways. Well, with pastors, unfortunately, they're bigots. Now, when I was talking about church earlier, I was talking about church in like what the Bible describes church as. But what church is in America, people grow up in church learning how to become bigots. That's just, I mean, it is what it is.
yeah,
So
and
that's what a
I've
pastor's going
experienced
to
it
do.
firsthand.
So that's a
I have
nationwide
experienced.
problem. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, so maybe I shouldn't weigh in on it because I have an existing bias because of prior treatment. So it may be unfair for me to call him a jerk, but he's a jerk.
Well, I don't think that. I just think you're recognizing your previous experience in what someone is doing now. Like there's a way to do that and be justified. You don't have to be wrong for calling him a jerk. You're not wrong. He's a jerk. Look, I was wrong the other day, and based on the facts, I thought I was so right, but it was just a perspective thing. I was wrong with my girlfriend, but when I realized I didn't listen to what she was actually saying, I had to apologize because I was being a jerk, specifically because whatever I was saying, I realized it had nothing to do with what her concern was. So thankfully
Yeah,
for
and
me, I apologize, but I was a jerk. It is what it is.
yeah, and the relationship between a pastor and his flock as a man is to his woman, that it isn't the same, but there's correlations within it that like the pastor's supposed to care for them. He's supposed to care. Why is he acting like this? It's heartbreaking.
Well, supposed to care and genuine caring is different. When you that's like the difference between a teacher that knows they're supposed to care. Like when you know you're supposed to care, and it's like that you're supposed to do this, that, and the third. So you do it because that's what's in the job description. And then there are teachers that go above and beyond and sometimes get fired for doing things for their children because they genuinely care. And it's not in the job description sometimes. And sometimes the job description goes against what caring for someone would be.
Yeah, I guess but I think what you're talking about is what's legally protected as opposed to what's morally right in that case, right?
Well, it sounds similar.
Yeah, you can draw correlations with that too, but the thing is pastor's supposed to be your moral signpost, right? I thought, isn't that what a pastor does?
Well, what a like someone who is realized as a pastor and steps into the role is one person, and then there are other persons like Peter Popoff. There are people who are in this.
Well, you have the elders too.
Could you
You know
imagine?
about the church bringing stuff to the pastor? You're supposed to go to the elders first. Technically, you're supposed to go to the elders of the church first. Then if they see it deemed fit, they believe they bring it to the pastor. But I had an open door to my pastor at any time I wanted to, which was a privilege because it was a big church. And I said, if I can't get intimate with the pastors like I am in a small church, then I don't want to be in a big church. I was able to because you show yourself friendly, you'll have friends. But the problem they were bringing in to the pastors, when they're brought to something, this is the problem that we're having in the church. They didn't feel that Pastor Carter's wife, Teresa, should be speaking or teaching because of what the Bible says. And believe it's Timothy, one of the letters. Paula went through the whole thing. She did a whole 3 or 4 weeks on it. So you could bring issues to the pastor. Now, if they deem fit, they're supposed to open up the Bible and show you in Scripture where they're not in folly. If they don't do that, then they're not following Scripture.
Yes.
That's great. Did I drop?
No. No, it's all good.
No, Neil, you said
Okay, so
something
with the
profound, and I was thinking about it. No, Neil, you said something very profound, and I was trying to think about it. I think several people were.
The problem we're having now, though, is it seems like we're the only ones that know what's going on, because the Christian believers, that's what I'm calling them, believers that Earth is flat, are lining up and tying in Easter and all the other nonsense. And the other side, they're holding on to a heliocentric system that is falling through their fingers, the paper mache. So it's like we're the only ones, I feel that we're the only ones that have truth, or others that are like-minded to the things that we're saying here. I mean, it's very simple. Open up the Bible and read. Start from Genesis. You will not be a heliocentric muppet if you open up the book from Genesis and start to read.
Yeah, I think Eli did say that during the live stream when he was, he was on fire, actually. Eli was really good in the live show.
I think the issue back then was when when Luther went to and he slapped the Reformation on the door of the Roman Catholic Church, wherever it was. They were talking about salvation. But I don't know, maybe they could have been talking about how people run around saying the earth is spinning. I wasn't there. I don't know. I can only go by what history is telling me. Hey, did you hear? It's sort of a change of subject, but Candace Owens converted to Roman Catholicism because her husband told her when you become a student of history, you can only be a Roman Catholic.
So?
Or when you appreciate history.
So?
It just seems strange to convert. I never heard that conversion back.
Well,
I've always heard
that should honor her husband.
Yeah, that's why it says do not be unequally yoked, believer or non-believer.
Nothing to see here.
Oh, I got to ruffle a few feathers there. Surprised Adam ain't saying anything.
Why would he? Hey, feel free, Adam, if you feel obliged.
I think he makes a good point. If you're going back in history to certain doctrine, then surely the closer you get to the time of Christ, the more original that is. I think that's the point he's making. That's not to say for me that necessarily Catholicism is the original form. But I think if you was to draw that analogy with Protestantism, I could understand why you could make that argument.
Didn't the Orthodox Church exist prior to the Catholic?
I don't think it's able to do with the shape of the nature of the earth. It's to do with doctrine.
Well, the interesting thing is so many Christians are here, most of them. What's the percentage? Can I say 90% are heliocentrists? Because that's the way we were brought up. That's what we were taught. The same as 2 plus 2 equals 4, and how to spell up and down. Right? We were taught that we live in a solar system and we're the third planet from the sun. Case closed. They did a great job, I can tell you that.
I'd like to do a little read. I've not really heard of those guys or what they would say, so I've just done a little bit of reading with regards to the cosmos and what was the other guy's name? Lactantius. So they're 4th century geographers as well. And they argued cosmos was rectangular with an arc that dominated a flat pavement of the earth. And they do say, look, so this historian asserts that the theory of cosmos remained the prevalent opinion for many centuries, even though he also concedes that Lactantius and cosmos must not be considered representatives of the scientific culture of the church fathers, but that their ideas were prevalent. So that in itself says the idea it was flat, domed, was prevalent historically. But the reason, what he does state is the reasoning that cosmos and this guy are giving it. And this is what I find interesting with this guy, because he's arguing that science disproves the scripture here, or our interpretation of the scripture, even though it's clear. But these guys seem to be basing their nature of and description of Earth on scripture. So he says, look, once again, the archetype was the tabernacle. So these guys are using scripture and drawing from it to firm up their ideas, hence why it looks like the tabernacle. And I would draw that analogy today with modern Christians. That's what the argument, that's what the people who are trying to bring to him and to other pastors. This is what the scripture's saying. He seems to be arguing that that's irrelevant because the church and science have historically clashed to the detriment of science. He's not there to defend science.
I have no way of picking up any coherent argument from anything that dude said. It all seemed to just contradict itself constantly, and he would change his position at the drop of a hat. You know, like, if you're trying to say what they did teach, why not just show what they did teach instead of trying to point at what they didn't teach? You know what I mean?
Why would the church be teaching that at all? It just wouldn't be relevant to people back then. Space doesn't exist. None of these concepts exist.
Right.
None of the way of perceiving it's not relevant. The church is teaching salvation.
Right, but if you're going to make the claim that they did not teach that, why don't you just get the syllabus or whatever they were, the doctrine of the time, and show it? Why did it take? Why was it like pulling teeth with him? I don't get it. We know why. He's one of those weirdo flat Earth globe believers. Hey Adam, I was thinking. If you're making an argument against what you know, is that the same as an argument from ignorance? It isn't, is it not? Or that is what it is. My brain ain't working this morning.
Depends what you mean by against what you know. I know 2 + 2 is 4, and I argue that it's not, even though I know it is. I'm not just an idiot, aren't I?
Yes, that's
An argument from
sorry.
ignorance would be if you were to suggest that 2 + 2 might not be 4 in the fourth dimension, because obviously we haven't, physically experienced it. So it could be that 2 + 2 doesn't. That's an argument from ignorance, because I don't know what it could be like in the fourth dimension. It's a possibility, therefore I can say that that's a truism or whatever. That's an argument from ignorance.
Right. But if you're saying that the Earth in the physical world is a sphere, and we measure Earth in the physical world flat, but you have to attack your measurement to assert it's a sphere, is that an argument for ignorance instead of from?
I'm waiting for Adam to answer.
Yeah, it's because it seems like it's just slightly different.
I don't think it's a fallacy.
Hurry up, Adam. Hurry up.
It's ignorance. You're just wrong because you don't know certain things. It's an argument from lack of knowledge, isn't it? So,
actually, no, they know. They do know. Right, let's just do it with our topic. They know it's measured flat, but they are making an argument against what they know.
They don't. I don't think they do know. I think they are trying to respond to us to the best of their ability, but we already understand that they respond in a non sequitur fashion. That doesn't confirm to me that.
Elijah, the consensus argument is that we know we measure Earth flat. It's because it's so big. That is an argument for ignorance, is it not? You're trying to invalidate what you know.
Oh yeah, true. But however, also what's going on is that you realize when people say they know what we mean, or they say they understand, the way that they respond signals to me that they didn't understand. Because they didn't respond to anything that I said.
Well, see, I don't know. Because the way Danny danced with me yesterday, they trying to pin him down to measurement to describe the world. He knew there was something scary within the measurements that he didn't want to address. And that's why when Adam brought him to the fact you couldn't get away from it quickly within a sentence, which I'd been trying for a bit to do, but he was squirrely. It's like a slippery eel almost. He left. It seems like they're trying to argue for ignorance, not from it. I think the Globers invented a new fallacy.
I mean, we're truly going to get some form of psychological control, obviously.
Right, they're trying to create a situation where what they know is not what they know, but they're not appealing to a place that is, unknowable. Right? They're talking about what we can know, what we experience, but they're taking what they know and saying they can't know it.
Yep, I get what you're saying. I feel you there.
It's slightly different than an argument from ignorance. It's just like to and from. No, it's just like just the destination you're trying to get to. You know what I mean?
I would go with argument to be ignorant, because you're going to be ignorant of the fact that you've just conceded. You're still going to be ignorant of it.
Right.
Fact, so you're ignorant to that fact for your arguments.
They don't understand that, like when they say that they know, they don't understand that knowing that based off of what someone else has done isn't them knowing. They don't know that.
Why the sudden reform in our approach, John? Like you've turned over a new leaf in terms of our attitude towards people. Like with the astronaut thing, worrying about whether or not we're misidentifying the lie. Have you turned over some sort of new leaf? He's turned over a new internet connection. He's just dropped. Hey ho, well, I guess we'll never find out.
He's trying to be more accurate. His accusations.
Anybody else contributed to the Give, Send, Go campaign?
Yeah, I did early on, just anonymously. I know 3 was the last one. Hey! 1003.
Right. Can you
I
shout
will
out?
if I can in the future, but I can't at the moment.
Can you shout out the person that contributed, if there's just one?
Yeah, I will put him on screen so we can see. So yeah, we'll put 1003, and it's Mike 808 for the $100. So thanks very much, dude.
Oh,
A third of the way there already.
That's awesome. It's the lull that we tend to have and gets their composure, and then something contentious comes up.
Are we still with Discord?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people in there.
Right over there as well. It's a disappointing video, though, you see, isn't it?
The one we covered today?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's frustrating man, isn't it? In many ways. Like Neil being super quiet because he's super critical of it. Man, I can understand John was being super critical but polite.
Yeah, the more time goes by, the more we'll end up distinguishing ourselves from your standard rank and file flat earther. That's what everyone attacks. It's the standard straw man, isn't it? Attack flat earth for this feast of nonsense list.
Hand wave of I'm not going to deal with flat earth was based on whether or not it was historically true or not that the church believed it was flat or round. So at the start, I don't see what that has to do with anything. Particularly if you're a pastor and people are saying, will you look at this piece in the Bible, please? It seems to be contrary to the heliocentric model.
Right. I think that was John's biggest critique of the guy, and I kind of agree. On the other hand, we have a whole show based on getting our opponents to put their views to us, right?
Excuse me.
It's not like their views change.
No, just how they misrepresent our views. Or how they decry their own claim.
Well, we're at the point where you can't have up or down or left or right without flat. So we're at a pretty sweet spot.
Yeah, or they can't tell the time without it.
Or breathe.
What is the state of play in the Discord server now? Is it just a complete absence of fundy zealots? Is it just flat earthers in the Discord server? Not that I'm decrying just being a flat earther, that's not what I mean.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Wow.
Not in the chat, though. The chat is usually full of Globers. But not today, looks like.
You're saying it's usually different? It's usually not full of... It is usually full of fundies, or just the chat?
Usually just the chat is full of fundies, but yeah, it seems to be kind of rare to get a Glober to talk in the chat or in the voice.
Well, the other day, Steve Bowman was on, and he would scattergun from one subject to the next. But like, I remember going to the height of the stars, and I remember that was the very first thing a certain person had said to me, and that kind of it lit a fire under my butt when you realize what kind of lie they're using on you and what kind of tactic you're being uh, used on, and it doesn't change. Like, it doesn't change. It's still just do the thing that you don't do with the thing that, yeah, we're doing, but we don't like to admit. So maybe they're just trying to figure out how not to admit it again.
No, so it's Pride Month. So Globers are busy doing their own thing.
I'm kind of bored of talking to Globers. They're so disingenuous and always just trying to lie about stuff. Like, don't even really care to talk to them. Rather talk to flat earthers about real stuff.
My uncle sent me a photo of a plane, and there's a horizon in the background, and there's a little curve in the horizon. But then I'm looking at the picture, and I'm looking at a little curve in the plane, and it's at 50,000, and I'm like, there's amateur footage at 120,000 that is flat, so maybe they're being a little deceptive at a missing 80,000 feet.
Is that the picture of the Concorde?
Is it the Concorde? I could look at it. I'm not really sure what plane it was, really.
Because that's usually the one they like to bring up. The Concorde seen at 55,000 feet, and there's curvature. Except you don't know what camera the guy used from the jet, the other jet that was tailing them, and he also had to take a picture through his canopy, and those canopies are thick because they have to withstand Mach 2.2 speeds. So the canopy itself will curve anything you see through it.
Yeah, but like who even cares? Like, oh, you see curvature from up in a plane. Like, okay, go down there and measure it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because you see it, like you still need to go and measure it.
And the thing is, people don't understand. If you were an ant and you were looking at a hula hoop on the ground, that hula hoop will only appear flat and level at one particular angle. As soon as you rise up above the hula hoop, the edge will have the appearance of curvature because now you're looking at a circle.
That's a good point.
And the other problem is it says, oh, I've been in an airplane. I saw curvature. I said, do you know your eyes are incapable of seeing any small objects at 200 kilometers or 300 kilometers? You wouldn't be able to make out an object that was 100 meters in size at that distance. That's how poor your eyesight is. You said, I saw curvature. Your eyesight's poor. You can't do that.
I can't believe people still ask that question. Like, oh, why can't I see China or whatever? Like, why can't I
Same
see
reason you can't
forever?
see
Why am I not
yeah.
Superman?
Just answer with the same reason you can't see the bottoms of the ocean.
Yeah.
It's considerably closer than China. Most oceans are no deeper than 4,000 meters. You should be able to see it, right? No. The water gets in the way and absorbs the light. Even though they can detect sunlight down to 1,000 meters, and at the twilight zone in the ocean start at 200 meters. So light will penetrate down to 200 meters, and then it becomes useless after that.
Are the oceans really only like 2.5 miles deep? I just looked that up.
And on average, they're not too deep.
That's crazy. I just never thought about it.
Yeah, most people don't, right? Let's see here. Yeah, the average ocean depth's approximately 3,688 meters or 12,080 feet. Granted, you got stuff like the Mariana Trench, which goes down to 11,000 meters or 36,000 feet, but that's the rarity. And while we were covering that video today, when the guy was talking about a level of knowledge, basically he goes, everybody believed that the Earth was a globe, blah blah blah. What does it mean, everybody? Like, how many people went to higher education, 1,000 years ago? Pretty much only the rich and the people who worked for the church. You know, that's it. Everybody else couldn't afford a higher education. So then I looked up, like, what are some of the oldest colleges and universities in the world, and some interesting stuff comes up. It says that the University of Oxford was founded by a group of scholars who were dissatisfied with the quality of education at the University of Paris. And then it gets better again, and then it says the University of Cambridge was founded by a group of scholars who were dissatisfied with the quality of education at the University of Oxford. Nobody is satisfied with the education system, and yet he's saying that, yeah, everybody knew it was a globe.
Right. What a garbage appeal.
Yeah. And then if you look at the oldest historical globe that has been built, that was only 1491. It's like the survivors. And then Copernicus didn't come up with his theory of heliocentrism until 1624. But everybody knew it was a globe, right?
Yeah. Anti-flat earthism. Full on. I called it in the live show, right? Deny your own rhetoric. Especially bad if you're claiming to be a Christian and then you're leaning on the Greeks. Like, what?
Weren't the Greeks a little bit of a hedonistic kind of people?
That's not my point. My point is that shouldn't just lean on the Bible and pull a few verses out.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't the Bible translated into Greek?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what he means.
No, I mean, no, because, okay, you should still be in the Greek translation pulling it from that. So we're looking to people from, like, it's not the same. Like, oh, this guy who is Greek said this. Okay, but what did the Bible say?
Don't leave dead air. If you ask something rhetorical, fill in the blanks.
I mean, there's only so far in the weeds we can go.
Yeah, this guy hasn't left much meat on the bones for us to chew on in the after show, has he?
I was thinking during the show, I was like, dang, I should have chose one. And then I started watching the video with Weiss and Jesse Lee Peterson, who I didn't know until now. It's pandemonium. It's crazy. It's pretty nifty.
Would that be a better video to have covered?
I think so. I don't like saying it, in retrospect or in hindsight, but yeah.
I asked the audience. Maybe we can look at it tomorrow if politics gets very stale.
I hope not. I hope there's Glovers. I hope there's something new. That's what I kind of hope for lately. Is a little shake up to the old rhetoric, the old arguments. It's not happening so far, at least not from the globe.
No, it's not, but, we live in hope. As I said at the beginning of the pre-show, it's like, well, our motivation is focused on getting our own side to realise how much refinement has gone on with the arguments. And we haven't necessarily been paying attention to what influence that has when you, if you're a Glober and an audience member, go, man, they don't even care to consider what we think about this. It's almost inconsequential to them. Maybe that's what's irritated them.
It's gotten to the. You're right. The word refine is good because we have repeated this argument over and over for years, or these arguments over and over for years. Heard the arguments back, and it only gets easier. It only gets simpler because it's true.
Yeah, it makes sense that it would get easier and easier. If it got harder and harder, you'd be like, why are we having to fight against all of these amazing globe proofs all the time? And eventually you'd get despondent and give up. And because that doesn't happen, it gets easier and easier as you get closer and closer to the truth of how Earth is measured, and that those measurements are used to claim that the Earth's a sphere. You realise why the Feast of Nonsense is so necessary. Why the paths to flat Earth are conspiratorial. You'd think the paths leading to how Earth's measured were geometric in nature. Well, they're not, are they? They're clone centre paths and 9/11 paths.
But all roads lead you here.
Clone centers.
Again?
I was just laughing. Clone centers. That's like my least favorite conspiracy thing, man. I hate when people talk about cloning. It's so dumb.
You telling me Lady Gaga and Amy Winehouse are not clones?
Yeah, see, there it is.
Lizard people, clone centers, Mandela effect, ether. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them.
Truthfully, I'm still open to most of them, but they don't take away from what we found here.
I just missed the good old-fashioned Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster, man. This new stuff, I don't like it.
Look, I have no issue with people who enjoy indulging in what are called conspiracy theories. Look, if you want to go and look into 9/11, then knock yourself out. I've got nothing against that. But it's got nothing to do with our subject, is my point. If you feel that there is a subject matter worth looking into that is clone centers and clones, then knock yourself out. It's just nothing to do with flat Earth.
Yeah, but how do you debunk a concrete noun? Bigfoot.
About Bigfoot.
Yeah, not big feet, Bigfoot, singular, grasshopper.
Okay. I mean, we could get into this. We cover ghosts too.
Nah, just not to leave that there, sorry.
Now, my overall point's obviously been lost. My point is that the paths that lead to how Earth is measured should be fairly boring, narrow paths, mathematical and measurement based in nature. Those aren't the paths that lead us to this subject. That is a conclusory path that we've managed to forge after 10 years of negotiating the actual paths that lead people to this subject, which are domes and ice walls and edges and all the conspiratorial periphery that's surrounding this subject for any individual normie that gets here. And they are what we've just discussed: clone centers, Mandela effect, ether. Lizard people.
So you're saying that clone centers and lizard people are subjects that can lead to talking about flat Earth?
Yeah. When I got here,
I
they were
got here
very.
from that.
They were connected at the hip when I got here 10 years ago.
How were they related, or like what was
They
it that
weren't. It's
bridged them?
just people who talked about flat Earth then talked about how Taylor Swift was a clone, or that the timeline's been changed with Mandela effect, and Earth is flat. Like they're somehow related. They're not.
I think you just kind of hit on subjects that overlap, and then you kind of switch boats.
Does
Because I got here during like 19, and I remember 2019 was a pretty hectic time in the news and the truth community and all that good stuff, and that was about the time where it was like, well, I'm sick of the lies, I'm sick of the BS, and then you find how much BS is in a globe, and you're like, oh, I'm here now.
That was stopped at the note.
But the subject itself is pretty specific in terms of what the nitty-gritty of flat Earth is. The subject. If I take it to something else, loosely related to the subject, so I can compare it, right? Talk about surveying. Let's say there's, although it's not the same type of surveying, I used to be a recruitment consultant and had to supply staff to RICS, or the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. And I would provide them with staff. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that someone within the institute decided that they wanted to make a video about what they did in their day-to-day business. Now, if you were perusing YouTube and you were looking at how to develop a blueprint, how to cover the local council's requirement for this, that, and the other certificate, and then you happened on the suggestions tab to find your way to the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors video about their day-to-day activities, you would not be at all surprised that your path of looking at blueprints and such like led you to that particular institute and their video on YouTube. Yeah? You can see the connection. One is directly linked to the other. Now, what I'm saying is, the path that got people here 10 years ago, me included, definitely wasn't, well, we're going to be talking about how Earth is measured. So if I happen to have been looking at similar videos, videos on navigation, map making, things of that nature, you would then expect to find your way to the people talking about how Earth is measured flat. Flat earthers, right? No. The path is, the timelines have changed, Mandela effect, people are all clones, we've been lied to about 9/11. That's the path, isn't it?
I'm gonna lie, it was my path.
Again?
I'm making coffee. Yeah, it was my path, but I mean, it's all control, right? If everything that includes part of the lie is kind of included in the lie. Everything that's tangential to it, like you got globe, you got atmosphere, you got ether, you got uh what? Airplanes, you got everything. Everything needs a globe, and yet you find that everything needs a flat.
Yeah, that should be a quick, succinct journey. It isn't. We, with the highest level of tenacity, have found our way to that conclusion after 10 years. Amazing.
You stick to what's true, that's what FED does, is it sticks to what's true, and that's why I stick to FED.
Yeah, baby. Right, it's obviously a very slow day, so I'm going to round out with that. I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.